Good evening and welcome to the April 25th, 2016 Planning Commission meeting for the City of Thousand Oaks. Calling the meeting to order. If you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible. Thank you very much. Would the recording secretary please call the roll for us?
Commissioner Alexander? Here. Commissioner Newman?
Here.
Vice Chair Reynolds? Here. Chair Nichols?
Yes. Next we have the public comment section, but I don't have any public comment cards, only cards for the agenda items tonight, so we will pass through that. And next, we're going to take minutes and resolutions. Mr. Town, did we anything to add other than what we have on our packet?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have a supplemental which did come in late this afternoon, so you may not have all seen it, but it does include 5 additional conditions for your third case tonight for the Hillcrest Signature Homes case. These have been reviewed and are approved by, prepared by Public Works, but reviewed and approved by the applicant as well. So just want to make you all aware of that, and that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so as far as minutes and resolutions, we have those in our packet. Any comments, questions, or motion to approve? Commissioner Reynolds?
I move approval of the minutes and resolutions of the Planning Commission meeting of March 21st, 2016.
Thank you. Any comments or corrections or edits? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
Motion passed 4-0.
Thank you. And that brings us to the new business. Mr. Town, would you please get us started with that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, at this time, I'm very happy to start the section on new business by having our newest planning commissioner, Mr. Andrew Pletcher, come up to the podium with City Clerk Cindy Rodriguez, and she will be administering the oath of office to Mr. Pletcher.
Please raise your right hand. Please state your name.
I, Andrew Pletcher,
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic? You will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties you're about to enter as a planning commissioner?
I do.
We get you to sign here. Congrats.
Thank you.
To the podium. Hot seat.
Hey. While Mr. Pletcher is taking a seat as Commissioner Pletcher, just a quick update. We're going to have a few comments from Mr. Pletcher, then the commissioners, and then we'll move into Mr. Town taking over with the rest of the agenda. So at this point, Commissioner Pletcher, welcome. You have the microphone is completely yours. Feel free to speak as much as you want.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I just want to first thank, of course, the City of Thousand Oaks and Mayor Joel Price for this great opportunity to continue serving the city. I certainly look forward to this challenge, and beyond that, I want to thank my wife and my daughter and her family for allowing me to sacrifice the time to come serve the city and supporting me along the way. Like I said, I certainly look forward to the challenge. I look forward to working with my fellow commissioners and the city staff in this new role. And I'll just keep it short and say thank you very much again.
Thank you, and welcome. Comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Reynolds.
And I just want to congratulate you and welcome you to the commission. I know that you'll enjoy it. There'll be a lot of reading. You'll miss some Monday night football games, but that's okay. Hockey's not played on Monday night usually, so I don't worry about that. But I'm really glad that you've been appointed to the commission, and I know you, as with your law background, that you do a great job.
Commissioner Newman.
Commissioner Pletcher, welcome to the Planning Commission. It's great to have you here and to be back at full strength here on the commission. I want to echo what Commissioner Reynolds said about passing along my sympathies about all the reading you have to do. But I'm sure you'll find it, as I have, educational, rewarding, and a great chance to be helpful in our community. And that's a great thing. So welcome.
Commissioner Alexander.
Thank you. Commissioner, welcome aboard. Thanks for the past service, and thank you for what you volunteered for in the future. And good to have you on the commission.
And finally, Commissioner Pletcher, again, thank you for volunteering your time. And you may not realize how much time you actually are volunteering, but it's all worthwhile, and I know the community will be much better for it. We appreciate your commitment. Obviously, with Mayor Joel Price's review of you and the other candidates, made a wise choice, and we look forward to working with you. Feel free to ask us questions or to speak as much as you want to kind of get a feel for it. We've got our own city attorney, Patrick Heher here, Mark Town here with Community Development. Certainly welcome to ask them whatever you need to get through the process, just to kind of orient yourself. But welcome aboard, and again, glad to have you be part of us in full strength. Look forward to working with you. Okay, and with that, there's an opportunity for any public comments to speak on behalf to Commissioner Pletcher for anyone who cares to. Mr. Kidway, did you want to say a few words?
I begin in the name of God, who is most beneficial, most merciful. My name is Nick Iqbal Kidwai. I'm a resident of Newbury Park and Executive Director of Concerned Citizens of Thousand Oaks for a long time. First of all, I'd like to thank the new commissioner. It's great to have young blood, fresh faces, and so I congratulate him. I have two disappointments. One is my friend and longtime city activist, Pete, who quit. I thought he would get thank you tonight for his service. I don't know what's going on. He had very good reasons to quit. He was on a roll. He gave the time to the commission. And so I wish him the best, and so do all the citizens of this community, because he's been active and giving selflessly. He's a successful businessman, and that's what is difficult to find, is to get people who are successful to give up their time. On the other hand, there were 25 applicants for this position. It was interesting that the last time the council member did not even interview anyone and just made up his mind. I guess the applicant, he had a candidate was just far outstanding, and he did not want to go through the motions to interview people. It is difficult, especially for working people like Pete, to serve, because the interviews are held during the day, and generally. And if you miss the interview, you get only one chance. You are deemed to not be serious for the position or whatever, and you just lose the opportunity. Everybody was given a chance for the interview for this position, and I was one of the applicants. I had no qualms about being nominated, but I did have my name there for the record. But I went after Mr. Pletcher was nominated the next day on Wednesday morning at the city clerk's office and poured over all the applicants. And it is unbelievable, unbelievable, the talent that came forward to serve. Just to give you an example, a retired judge, a retired superintendent of schools. Mr. Pletcher had the honor of serving for 3 traffic commissions meetings, not very long. His senior chairman of the traffic commission with 20 years under her belt applied and was turned down, even though her resume as vice president of property management company just lends perfectly for this kind of position. We even had disabled activist Mary Harris who applied, senior programmer from Amgen. There were plenty of young people who have paid their dues and are outstanding and could serve well. So Chairman, if you would let me say, I have a friend's son who's running for city council in Stockton, and I'm helping him a little bit as being a senior guy here, even though I'm not in Stockton. And I asked him, he's involved in I know that I'll be done soon. I won't take advantage of it. The Rolls-Royce timer is not working? Okay. Yeah, this is a commendation thing. So
you could just wrap it up.
Yeah, I will wrap up, except to tell you that I asked him, he has paid his dues in his community, and I said, well, what have you done for city committees? And he said, he started laughing. I said, why? He said, we don't even apply here because we all know who's going to be appointed. They are all political appointments. And it's very sad that we are coming to that. I hope that the commissioner will live up to the expectations that the mayor has for him and that I and other citizens have. Wish him the best of luck. Thank you for letting me speak. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Mr. Kidway. And we have one additional comment, Mr. Chase Rashid. Mr. Rashid, if you'd like to say a few words for us. And I forgot to state, but Mr. Kidway did anyhow, your name and city of residence for the record, please.
Oh, okay. Chase Rashid, City of Thousand Oaks. Okay, I'm going to try to inject a little positivity here. Now, I should not say this, but I am a person who kind of says things from the cuff. And, we don't always get appointed to the commission or the committee that we want to, but we have to accept that as adults. We can't get up here and shade people who got appointed to the position. It's not up to the individual to say who paid their dues or whatever, because, all our council members, they appoint qualified people. Everybody up here is qualified. I may not agree with every vote every commissioner takes, but I believe that all of you are qualified. So, you have to put on your big boy britches and, accept the appointments like a man, or I should say like a woman, because I don't want to, leave anybody out. But yeah, so let's be positive, not negative. But I really want to say to the new commissioner, thank you for volunteering your time to do this. All of these city commissions and committees, they require a lot of reading, a lot of volunteering your personal time. So thank you for volunteering for our city. And I also want to say about when you take votes, you always have to remember you'll get a lot of different opinions. You can't be all things to all people. You really have to evaluate the way our city code is, our general plan, all of that. You have to take into account reasonable use of property for private owners. And so you also have to take into account how it will affect the community. So you put all that together and you come up with a good decision. Again, you're not going to be able to please all people, but you have to make the best decision based on the information that is in front of you. And thank you for serving the city. I'm on a city committee, transportation, so I know that it takes a lot of work to get prepared to go to the meetings and everything, and actually go to the meetings. So again, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rashid. That concludes our public comments, and now we're going to move into the Planning Commission reorganization section, and for complete impartiality, we're going to turn it over to Mr. Mark Town.
Thank you, Chair Nichols. At this time, I would like to open nominations for Planning Commission Chair for the balance of 2016. Commissioner Newman?
I'd like to move that Commissioner Reynolds' name be placed in nomination. She's a longtime resident of the city and has more experience by far than anyone else on the panel here, and I think would make an excellent chair.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, nominations are closed. Would you vote, please?
Motion passed 5-0.
Great, then at this time, we'll play some musical chairs. Unless you'd like to make some comments first?
Oh, I didn't know you were going to move the chairs that quick. That's fine.
Why not? Why not?
Oh, here.
Pack my bag.
You want any speakers? Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you, commissioners, for the vote of confidence. At this time, I'd like to open nominations for the vice chair of the commission. Commissioner Nichols?
Yes, thank you, Chair Reynolds. Madam Chair, I would like to put into consideration Mr. David Newman as our commissioner who has served us quite well, and I think he'd serve us quite well in the next roll up, and would like, and I think he might even outdo some of us here already, so I'd like him to be considered for the next term.
Thank you. Any other nominations? Then I'll close nominations, and would you please vote?
Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you. And at this time, we'd like to take a short time for a reception in the lobby. And this reception is really to honor our new planning commissioner, Commissioner Pletcher. So we'll be back in, I don't know, about 20 minutes. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to reconvene the meeting. And would the secretary please call the first case 6A? Oh, excuse me, it's 8A.
Hearing advertised as required by law is hereby open to consider agenda item 8A regarding case SUP 2016-70009. Applicant, Delightful. Request to allow live entertainment at an existing restaurant. Location, 322 West Hillcrest Drive.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Reynolds, member of Planning Commission. For your first case this evening is case SUP 2016-70009 for Delightful Restaurant. The request is to allow live entertainment at a newly remodeled restaurant. This is an aerial photo of the subject property location. Is located on the middle, facing the southern part of the Oaks Mall. Shopping center was approved by the city back in 1972, and there's further additions after that. Presently, there are about 12 restaurants within the Oaks Mall. The tenant space was previously approved as a hamburger fast food restaurant, Johnny Rockets. Applicant Delightful took over the space last year in 2015 and applied for a tenant improvement application, which should be completed within about a month. Applicant also applied for a outdoor dining area and also the exterior remodel, and also for the service of alcohol beverages. That was all approved administratively last month in March. Special use permit application for live entertainment does require Planning Commission approval for this case. This is a elevation photo of the restaurant location. It's next to the entrance to the Oaks Mall to the left side. It's at the time when the picture was taken, it was boarded for remodel. Oops. This is a further close-up of the elevation of the restaurant. On the left-hand side would be the approved outdoor patio area, dining area. This is the interior view of the restaurant, which has an internal connector to the corridor to the interior of the shopping center. If this is a view, if you're facing directly, if the restaurant is behind you, you're facing the parking lot directly. Nordstrom will be on the right-hand side. Directly past the parking lot is the freeway. Applicant is requesting for a live entertainment consisting of a two-person band. According to the applicant, it's going to be a band that plays 80s music. And live entertainment is going to be planned for after hours, typically in the evening, after 5 p.m. This is a comparison of the hours of operation. The Oaks Mall is open from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. In the Sundays, it closes a little bit earlier. Delightful Restaurant, the planned hours of operation is open earlier from 7 a.m. and closing at 11 p.m. On Sundays, it'll be just the evening hours. Live entertainment presently proposed by the applicant is from Thursday to Saturday in the evenings, starting at 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. closing. And on Sundays, it'll be from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Staff supports the request because the restaurant faces a parking lot and also the freeway. There's no residences within the proximity of the restaurant. As a matter of fact, the nearest residence is over 900 feet away, which is across the freeway. Conditions also has been in place where the sound volume must be controlled and it has to be within the tenant space. Also, other conditions is that the live entertainment is limited to a specific area only within the restaurant. It's not outside, and doors must be closed during live entertainment. Further conditions, staff added condition number 8, which requires that should there be any violations, that the applicant possibly could be a revocation of the permit. Police Department also has no opposition, subject to their conditions of approval. The application is exempt from CEQA. Staff recommends Planning Commission approves SUP 2016-7009 based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval contained in the staff report. This concludes staff's presentation. Staff's available for questions and comments.
Thank you. Are there questions of staff? Commissioner Newman?
Good evening, Mr. Lin. Thank you for your presentation. Just one question on the conditions. As I understand it, the scope of this project is to permit live entertainment in the interior of this restaurant, which will soon open. Is that correct?
Yes, the condition limits all live entertainment, and the noise has to be limited to within the restaurant only.
Within the interior of the restaurant?
Yes.
Okay. Then my question has to do with condition number 27, which is on page 28 of our packets. This is a fire department condition about the use of patio heaters. I presume those are exterior devices. So my question is, does that condition belong here?
I'm sorry, which condition would that be?
Condition 27 on page 28 of our packets. This is having to do with outdoor patio heaters.
Yeah, I think that condition was a condition that was given by the fire department as a boilerplate condition, and that in this case, the patio heaters wouldn't apply. It would actually apply to the outdoor dining area.
Right, but this SUP is just governing the allowing live entertainment only,
That's correct.
right? And on the interior of the restaurant. So I was puzzled to see this condition about something on the exterior of the restaurant, and was wondering if it was relevant in some way to the SUP.
Yeah, I think this staff does apologize for the confusion. In this case, the applicant at that time did apply for outdoor dining, combining with the live entertainment as part of one application coming in. And later on, since live entertainment does require a planning commission hearing, the case was actually separated. Fire department reviewed the application as one combined application, and therefore the condition came in. But this has been reflected on the outdoor dining area. It shouldn't be here.
Okay, I see. I have no objection to the condition. I was just wondering what relevance it had to indoor entertainment.
Yes, sorry for the confusion. That was for outdoor dining, which was part of the application, but it was separated.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Thanks for clearing that up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Commissioner Pletcher?
Good evening. Thank you for the presentation. I just had a quick question regarding condition number 8 in the packet involving the enforcement. I just want to follow up and make sure, is the applicant being told the process of what a verified complaint would be, so that the applicant and the business in the process of running their business will be able to prevent a verified complaint from happening? I mean, because you can read verified complaint 50 different ways, and if they don't know what a verified complaint is, how are they supposed to stop it, essentially, before it happens?
Mr. Town?
Perhaps I can respond to this one. Any complaint that we would receive would be routed to our code compliance department, and it would be their responsibility in part to contact the complaining party to first verify that in fact there was a legitimate issue, and through that interview process typically they can determine if it is or not. Sometimes we have complaints that turn out to be unverified, so that would be their first step. And then normally what then happens is code compliance contacts the lessee and determine the best way to resolve it. And so I should just note that it's rare that an SUP is revoked for these types of complaints. We have had a couple over the years, but over literally decades, where that's been required in the end when issues could not be addressed. But in this case, code compliance would first verify there's a legitimate complaint and then work with the lessee to resolve it.
If I may, Chair, one of the things that we do is with code compliance is if we receive a complaint with noise, especially, we look at this particular specific use that's being requested. And so one of the things through our experience that we receive when we have such things as bans is got to be a nuisance complaint for the noise or excessive noise. And so what this condition does is in a sense put them on notice specifically about, we realize that you're asking for a ban. We also realize through our experience that you might get sometimes loud, and through our experience we know that there might be noise complaints, and we're going to tell you now in this condition that if we verify those type of nuisance complaints, then that means having investigation opened up even in a limited way, and checking the facts and assuring that we have some evidence to go by. Then we go forward with that co-compliance process, which includes trying to resolve it. And so that resolution could take many steps, including hopefully initial contact with the owner and saying, here's an issue that we have, let's see how we can address it, whether it means just better policy for staff to instruct them to keep the doors closed. It could be for turn down the music. It could be various elements that maybe there's a mistake or they went outside without no one knowing about it. Many things could happen. But that's how we look at that. And so we put that in there partly just to say this is a very specific concern we have, and we want you to be on notice that when we approve this or when we had this in front of the Planning Commission, this was a very specific condition.
Go ahead.
Thank you for the response. My main issue is I just want to make sure that this gets communicated to the applicant, just so that they're aware of what they can possibly do to prevent even opening up the possibility of a complaint. So I certainly understand why it's in there. I just want to make sure our applicant is, told and made aware of the process, so that in running the business they can prevent any possible issues. Thank you.
And again, with any complaints we receive, we are going to send written notice to a property owner for an alleged violation if we think it has merit.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Then I'll call the first speaker, and is the applicant, and you have 15 minutes to make your presentation. You will have a 5-minute rebuttal period afterwards in case there's anything else you'd like to say. And as you come forward, you please state your name and city of residence. And it's Tracy Webster.
Evening. Tracy Webster, Newbury Park. I don't know if it's the same for you, but for me, I find it very, very frustrating when I go out to dinner and I can't hear the people at the table with me, and I have to shout to get heard over the music because it's too loud. That is the complete opposite of what we are creating at Delightful. We are the first of our kind in California. We are a low-carb restaurant. We are fine dining, white tablecloth, and serving food that is created consciously. We don't serve food that has any sugar or chemical additives. Our protein is all hormone and antibiotic free, so we're taking care with everything. The live entertainment is basically just for background music. The entertainment system is piped through our speakers, so the volume control is totally within my control. So there will not be any loud music, any music carrying outside of the space. The music will only be on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday from 5 p.m. till about 10 p.m. and 9 p.m. on a Sunday, as we close earlier on a Sunday evening. Thank you.
Any questions of the speaker? Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Nichols.
Just a reference, or to clarify, you're indicating that your musicians will actually be, I guess, either playing into or singing into a microphone, so they're not going to have these big stanchions of speakers over here blasting throughout the space. There'll be speakers, I guess, in the ceiling throughout the tenant space, and so you can just almost like regulate it like you would a stereo system or a radio system. Is that
That's correct?
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Webster. We'll go back to staff. Is there anything staff would like to add?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Questions of the commission? And Ms. Webster, did you have anything else you wanted to add? Then I'll close the public hearing, and now is the time for deliberation or motion. Gentlemen, Commissioner Nichols.
Yes, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to support this request and approve SUP 2016-70009. I think is it 6? I had 9.
Yes.
Oh, it says 9 here in the report.
Oh, 9.
Oh, okay. Okay, and looking at it, I think the staff has done a good job of assessing this, and I think now that I've been comforted that we're not having big speakers, it is somewhat isolated from the other tenants. I know they do have some access to the food court area, which is noisy in and of itself. I'm not sure who's going to be competing with noise in that regard. But since it's on the outside of the mall, the parking side, the freeway side, distance from residences, I think we have good conditions for checks and balances. And I also think that the mall itself will have oversight as well. So I think there's a lot of good reasons to support this. So I would move that we go ahead and support this.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments to the motion? Commissioner Fletcher? Okay, then please vote.
Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you. And there is a 10-day right of appeal period to the Community Development Department. We'll go on with case 8B. Would the secretary please open the hearing?
Hearing advertised as required by law is hereby open to consider agenda item 8B regarding case DPMN 2016-70003. Applicant, Mace Rich Oaks. Request to allow an expansion to the restaurant and outdoor dining area at an existing restaurant, the Cheesecake Factory. Location 442 West Hillcrest Drive.
Thank you. And the staff report to be given by Ms. Pedroso. Good evening.
Good evening, Chair Reynolds and members of the Commission. The request in front of you is for Cheesecake Factory. They are looking into doing a building expansion and also adding a new outdoor dining area at the existing restaurant location in the Oaks Mall. The subject property is basically in the center of the Oaks Mall on the north side, and basically to the east of the restaurant is Macy's and to the west is JCPenney, just to give you an idea where it's located. It is located on the north side of the mall, and right now they do have an outdoor dining area, and immediately to the west of the restaurant, you have the main entry to the mall, and then you have Stack Restaurant, which also has an outdoor dining area. And when you look at a building from the north looking back, basically two restaurants with the outdoor dining area kind of frame the entrance to the mall on the north side. What they're proposing to do is to enclose the existing outdoor dining area. They're calling it a covered patio, but basically we consider more like as a building expansion because it does have a low wall and it has large windows, but it does have a solid roof as well. But nevertheless, they're doing and covering the existing outdoor dining area. They're configuring the mezzanine. They're also updating the architectural treatment of the building on the facade, and they're creating a new outdoor dining area that will be directly to the north of the existing one. The reason why the Planning Commission is looking at this case is because staff believes that the closure of that main walkway that is symmetrical to the one in front of Stacked is something that we consider that should be looked at by the Planning Commission because the staff doesn't feel that that's the right move to do on this particular project. And this is a front view looking at the Cheesecake Factory right now. To the right, you see the mall entry, and then to the left, you see the basically some umbrellas and also the patio heaters in existing the outdoor dining area. And in front of it, you see the existing planter. And right in front, you see this. There's another sidewalk that is right next to the driveway, and that one usually is used by patrons as well as some deliveries and also valet parking during the winter time, holiday time, and also is used for drop-off and curbside pickup area from the restaurant. This is a view of the existing outdoor dining area, and to the left of it, this is that big walkway that right now most people use, and this is where they're proposing to have the expansion. And again, now looking towards the west from the one end, how this looks. And then this is the symmetrical sidewalk that is actually opposite of the Cheesecake Factory. This is in front of Stacked. And again, this walkway over here is used by pedestrians, and to the right you see the outdoor dining area for Stacked. To the left is the existing planter that mimics the one on the other side in front of Cheesecake Factory. Again, this is a picture of a Stacked outdoor dining area, which is almost basically the same size and location that it is for the Cheesecake Factory. The existing restaurant has about 9,500 square feet and also includes the outdoor dining area, and also, if you're familiar with inside the mall, they have like an indoor but outdoor type of seating within the mall entrance. So that includes that. And the proposed design is going to increase the square footage to about 10,800, so it's about 14% increase from what's existing right now to what they're proposing to have. The new outdoor dining area is going to remove about 480 square feet of planter area that is to the east of this proposed outdoor dining area. There's going to be a 1/16" diameter redwood and 2 8-inch diameter magnolias. In the staff report, I think we put 8 feet. That's an error. It's actually 8 inches. They will also provide umbrellas. The first design had an awning, and we suggested to have umbrellas instead because the awning was pretty large, so the applicant agreed to that. So right now for the outdoor dining areas, they're going to continue using umbrellas. And this proposal is going to close the public walkway, which is about 11 to 16 feet in width, and basically the whole traffic will be moved over to the location that is adjacent to the driveway, like I showed in the pictures earlier. And here we have a partial floor plan of the 16 area. This is actually the current outdoor dining area. And this is the planter to the east, and then this is the planter in front. And as you can see on the next drawing, they basically took out part of this existing planter to the east, and then they're covering the whole walkway as the new outdoor dining area abuts to the existing planter. And this is the sidewalk that is adjacent to the driveways that will remain. In regards to the actual building design, the design is compatible with the mall design. We don't have right now materials and sample board, so we have added a condition that requires for the materials and samples to be submitted prior to any building permits should the commission decide to go with the applicant's request and approve the request. But the overall design, it is compatible with the architectural design guidelines. And these are some of the elevations that kind of show some of the detail. From what is seen over here, they do pick up some of the detailing that is going on around the mall as far as some of the wall insets and some of the grill work, and also kind of mimic some of the details that they have right now in the at the existing store. And this is a side view. This is basically where the existing outdoor dining area is, and then this is what we consider to be more of a building expansion versus a covered patio, even though that these windows open all the way through. And again, to the north of it, you see a profile of future umbrellas and patio heaters and delineation of the new outdoor dining area. In regards to parking, the addition requires 148 parking spaces, and when you check that against the shared parking analysis that has been submitted by the mall, there's still a surplus of 285 parking spaces available, so therefore the expansion can be accommodated by the parking that is provided right now. There's a few reasons why staff does not support this proposed design. Like I mentioned earlier, from seeing at the site, the pedestrians prefer the water pathway, but once this is removed, then people will be forced to go next to the driveway, and you do have, like I mentioned earlier, the conflict between deliveries, curbside pickup, and people going back and forth. Again, it's also one of the looks that we're trying to preserve in the mall is a symmetrical feel of grand entrance that you have. Back when the mall went through a major remodel, and there was large committees, people involved, staff time, there were public meetings, and everybody had conceptual ideas and comments and suggestions and how the design should go together. So this was not just an arbitrary design, it was something that went through a lot of thought and it went through a lot of effort. So by doing what Cheesecake Factory is trying to do and expand and delete that walkway, we feel that it's a big change that changes the character of the area, and also takes away the feel of the spaciousness and the character of that entrance. Should the project be approved, this project does comply, or qualifies, I should say, as a Class 1 categorical exemption because it's a minor expansion of the existing use. And our recommendation to the Planning Commission is for the Commission to deny the request, and we have included findings on the staff report. However, if the commission decides to approve the project, we have added conditions of approval, which is also in your report, and then the commission will direct us as to what findings they'll like to use in this case. So now we're open for questions.
Are there questions? Commissioner Nichols?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Pedrosa, thank you for the report. Is there a distinction in parking requirements for covered patio versus open dining patio areas?
Any dining area is one parking space per 45 square feet. The difference will be a bar area, a dining area, and a service area. So the service area will be for your kitchen, restrooms, kind of those services. But as far as outdoor or indoor dining, it's the same requirement, 1 per 45.
1 per 45 what? I'm sorry?
One parking space per 45 square feet.
45 square feet.
Of a dining area.
Okay.
The only difference is that we do allow on an outdoor dining area, we give an exclusion of 5 tables with 4 chairs. So those ones they don't have to park for. That's typical of any other project.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And one other question. The condition number 21 referring to zone clearance, it says the issuance of a zone clearance is required prior to the commencement of outdoor dining activities. Can you explain what the zone clearance process is?
Basically, when a lot of times when you have an outdoor dining area, there's no building permit attached to it. So we always require to have an zone clearance. And basically any project that even comes in for permit also requires a zone clearance. It's just it's a chance for us to take a look at the drawings again, make sure everything complies, and then we sign it off from the planning end.
And do other departments review that at the same time then? Is that
Yes.
a formal submittal for the city to review?
Correct.
I see, okay. All right, thank you. That's it.
Commissioner Newman?
Good evening, Ms. Pedrosa, and thank you for your report. Regarding the recommendation for denial, your second finding or rationale for a vote to deny is that the elimination of the walkway is contrary to the intent of the city's architectural guidelines and standards for commercial projects. This is a resolution that was passed in 2005. All projects that come before us have a standard condition. It's condition 10 in this case. That is a signed acceptance of conditions. It says essentially we agree to everything that's in here. And so my question is, did the applicant sign previously an agreement to comply with that earlier set of architectural guidelines and standards, or some other case that came out of that requires compliance with those guidelines?
When the remodel of the mall happened, Macerich was the applicant, and there's the ones that signed acceptance of conditions. This particular case, Cheesecake Factory is the applicant, but they were basically as part of the big remodel at the time. So Cheesecake did not sign per se, although they always review the conditions as it affects them, but the applicant at the time was Macerich. However, when they went through a special use permit for alcohol, selling consumption of alcohol, they did have their own application for that.
This is perhaps a legal question. Maybe it's a question for Mr. Here, maybe for you, I'm not sure. But is Macerich's earlier signature agreeing to obey those conditions, is that binding on the applicant tonight on Cheesecake Factory?
I think that the answer actually is that they are actually here now for this new design. So even if an applicant, and not even Cheesecake Factory, if an applicant had previously had an approval of something and there were guidelines that they had to approve, for example, limits of height of walls, certain features that you might have on the building, and now they wanted to change it, that's actually what they're doing here. So even if they were, and I don't think they were in this particular case, I think it was really more for the mall itself, with the look itself. That is actually why we're here. That's one of the reasons why we're here, is they're actually asking for a change to that, even if, because right now it does apply to them. And so they say, here's what we want to do. And so we want to go beyond what our standards were before. And this is why we want it. And staff's position is, as you heard, they don't think it's appropriate.
So just so I'm clear, when you say it does apply to them, you're referring to the applicant, the Cheesecake Factory, is bound to the architectural guidelines and standards. Is that right?
Well, any current tenant that was a tenant at the time is going to be affected by the conditions that the applicant, which in this case would be the owner of the complex as a whole, is going to be accepting. If there are going to be changes to those conditions because of a unique use, for example, they would have to actually have and come in and say, wait, for that particular condition, please don't do that. Or we're going to come in and we want to come into this new mall and there's a condition, for example, of height limit, for example, or no loud music or something of that nature. They're going to come in and say, okay, we have a special request here. There might be a process where it doesn't go to Planning Commission, but there might be a process to get that changed. Some can be done administratively, some can be done through the Planning Commission, and of course some can have to only be done through the City Council. So those steps have to be done. Again, to me, the issue here is they're making a request. Whether or not they were bound by something in the past isn't relevant. It's more of, this is their request today, and your decision today is, do you want to go with their request, or do you want to go with staff's recommendation?
All right. Thank you. I have no other questions.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Alexander?
Thank you. The findings, the way I understand them, essentially address an issue of safety and access based on the request from the applicant. Is that a fair assessment? Based on that 6-foot walkway now will be the only access from the parking area to the mall. Is that a safety issue or no?
Some safety is involved. The architectural feel of the space is one of the main concerns. But then again, safety is partially part of it because of the amount of activity that will be going on that sidewalk.
Okay, and then additionally, did you have conversations with the applicant in regard to having some type of walkway on the south side of the planter between what they want to expand to and that edge, that south edge of the planter? For example, a 6-foot walkway or an 8-foot walkway. Was there any conversation between you and the applicant about that?
There were conversations in a meeting, and we did ask for them if they would be able to modify the design, and the direction from them was that they did not want to modify the plan, and they wanted to go forward with what you see today. So basically, we asked them, and they said that they would not entertain that. They needed to have the area that is showing as part of their project to make it work.
Okay. Perhaps a question for the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I just also wanted to ask, where you talked about that the 6-foot walkway is where I know Cheesecake Factory people drive up there to pick up orders. People are picked up there, but there is a shaded area pop-up there too. And I believe during the busy holiday season that there's valet parking in that area too. There's not? Oh, maybe it's something I should ask the applicant then. Why is there that pop-up that sits out there?
I think it's a shuttle stop. I think they use it in the winter for a shuttle stop.
From?
For the outside, for the far end parking by the old Armstrongs.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, at that far end. Okay, thank you. I was just curious because I know at one time there used to be valet in through there. And now the valet is really over closer to the theater. So, but I was just trying to get in my head all the activity that goes on in that area, and that's why I thought maybe it was still a valet. Thank you. I don't think there are any other further questions. I'll go to the applicant, and the applicant will have 15 minutes, and this includes everyone in your team. So if more than one person is speaking, you'll have to divide that 15 minutes up. And as you come forward, you please state your name and city of residence, and I have the main speaker is Craig Oka, if he'd like to come forward. And as I said, your whole team will have 15 minutes, and there is the timer. The yellow light will go off when there's 1 minute, and then a red light will go off for you to stop. Good evening.
Good evening, Chair Reynolds and commissioners and members of the staff. My name is Craig Oka. I'm the architect for the Cheesecake Factory. I reside in Huntington Beach, California. I've been around for a long time, long enough to remember actually doing this original Cheesecake Factory in 1998. So it's one of the earlier cheesecake factories we worked on. I remember it being also the smallest at the time. Historically, Cheesecake Factory's always been about 10 to 11,000 square feet. They were trying to downsize, trying to come up with a new, smaller cheesecake. So fortunately, it's been very successful. So obviously, when the opportunity came up to expand it by possibly pushing out the front, making more available season-round seating by enclosing the and covering the outdoor patio, and then still creating an outdoor patio out in front to kind of enhance the vibrancy out of the main entry, they welcomed it. I think the intent was to decrease wait times. I don't have any facts, but what I understand is it's a pretty busy restaurant, and the added seating will help alleviate some of that wait time. And also to, as I think staff said, that we want to upgrade the appearance. This is a rather old restaurant for cheesecake, and we want to kind of upgrade it to what its cheesecake's current look is. So we took this opportunity to, by enclosing the patio, to introduce some of the newer elements that are appropriate to current Cheesecake Factory. Part of the reason for expanding the seating also is there's a certain amount of capital investment that obviously, restaurants have to invest in. And in doing this, trying to justify that with, okay, well, what does it bring us? Does it bring us something? Yes, it brings us added seats, lesser wait times, more revenue. So obviously that's, it's a business, so that was important to him. Looking at, is there a way to display that? Okay, upside down. I just wanted to put this kind of Google aerial view of the parking lot and the main entry to the mall. As you can see, the bulk of the parking is kind of central to that main entry. And what we observed is that most of the people from those middle three aisles actually come up that center path. And it's even indicated on one of the mall site plans that that is kind of the primary path from the ring road pedestrian flow, but also from the parking lot. And what I did observe both last time I was here and earlier this afternoon is that there are occasionally people that use that wider path that kind of swoops in to the side, but they're primarily people that are either coming out of Macy's or maybe parking further out. And I have seen people use the smaller 6-foot path. Now, granted, that's smaller and maybe less convenient, but it's by all means meets code. I don't see it as a safety issue, but I understand, staff's concern is that we're taking away something and maybe not giving something back. Let me flip to another diagram. So again, this diagram, I have to hold something. So in this diagram, right? So in this diagram, again, we're just showing the, I was given the site plan by the folks at Macerich, and it shows the primary pedestrian path and this shaded area right in front of the mall entry is kind of a raised area in the paving, so it's flush for wheelchair access, I believe. But also it kind of announces that that's the primary entry to the mall. These side paths, the one on either side by Stack and the one by Cheesecake, they're actually kind of leading to an area that's not as desirable because you have the service yard on one side and the trash pickup on the other side. So I don't understand necessarily the importance of that grandness for those walkways. I understand it's a little bit shorter, but the whole idea that it's a primary path is possibly something I don't necessarily agree with. The next diagram. Is this right? In this diagram, the primary path that I was pointing out before that comes over that raised aisle that crosses the drive aisle is really kind of the primary path for the traffic flow. These other two aisles on either side, what we observed today is what we parked in this aisle, and obviously you're going to walk kind of through here to get to the entrance. I did observe people parking in this aisle, and they took exactly this route to get to this sidewalk and walk in. There are people that possibly come out of Macy's, cross this service trash pickup area, and do cut through here, but we measured the distance traveled, and this distance traveled is, the blue is the area where we want to put our outdoor patio. It is like 7, 8 feet longer than the longer route around the outside, so it's kind of more of an inconvenience than it is really a direct main entry path. So I see it more as a secondary path. And I think in the staff report they mentioned in a 20-minute period they had observed 40 people walking that path. And now granted that maybe is not during the Christmas season or holiday season, but 40 people over 20 minutes, that's like 2 people every minute. You know, does it need to be 16 feet wide? So anyway, that's kind of why we're up here, is we think that it's not really a primary path, and that we think that, you know, maybe there's a little bit too much importance placed on that. These are, I don't want to go through all the photos that staff already have the photos. Let me just put this map back up. Yes. So I think, generally speaking, we want, okay, yeah, thank you. We want the commission to consider this application as is. One other thing I forgot to mention. There was a time when that path was closed off for a 2-week period, and I asked the mall if there was any issues during that period. And I guess there were no filed complaints. Nobody complained. Everybody went about their normal shopping business on the weekends and everything, and there was no issues. So that's just on, you know, from their observation from the mall management people. In summary, I think what we're here is we want the commission to kind of evaluate this, and we understand the staff's concerns. We don't see it as a code issue. We understand that there was a prior agreement possibly that, you know, I didn't really know about, that maybe Macerich had promoting this kind of grand entrance, and unknowingly we put our patio there and found out later that, oh, well, maybe that's not such a good idea. But we still want the commission to kind of review it and take into consideration that we don't think it needs to be a grand entrance or a primary path. But if we find that we need to widen something, I mean, we are not adverse to providing a compromise here. We're not going to say, no, we're just not going to do it. We are willing to find a compromise, and naturally we can't just take it away, but we'd have to go back to the landlord, in this case Macerich, and work out a possible solution. And we are willing, if that's the case, if the commission finds that they just can't approve this the way it is, then we are willing to take a second look at it with the landlord and with staff and revisit it. That is something that, we're open to. Anyway, that's all I have, so thank you. Thank you for your time. I understand.
Did you want the rest of your team to come up? Or I have a card from Aaron Spector and Greg Breland. And I don't know if Teresa Kelly is part of your group. You have 5 more minutes, or just less than 5 minutes.
I took 10.
Mr. Spector, if you'd like to come forward and state your name and city of residence. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Aaron Spector, City of Westlake Village. So I just wanted to clear up, I heard before there was some comment on the activity that goes on right outside of Cheesecake Factory along that curb. There is no valet parking in that area currently. During the holidays, we have that over by Nordstrom now on the south side, so it would not be over by Cheesecake. And then throughout the year, we have that over by the theaters in the Horseshoe, by Lazy Dog and Red Robin. So I just wanted to clear that up.
Yes.
Then I also kind of want to reiterate the flow of traffic that we realize throughout the year at the Oaks. When we're talking about, and I don't have it in front of me, but the raised portion in between Stacked and Cheesecake and kind of where everyone parks north of that parcel, we kind of try to promote, I think I just saw it come up. Well, I think maybe everyone knows what I'm talking about, but the raised portion that goes in between Stacked right to the entrance of the Oaks, we kind of promote that as probably the most pedestrian-friendly walkway. And I would tell you from parking north of that pad for over a year and a half now, usually everyone that parks north of Cheesecake Factory will walk to that center aisle because, first of all, it's raised up. There's 2 stop signs, so cars that are coming east and westbound are stopping already. So it obviously gives you the most visible presence to be a pedestrian in that walkway. I think you stated that most of the pedestrians that are coming out of Macy's that want to connect to the mall, they will come out of that entrance and go along this wider path. So Macy's is, I think we all know where Macy's is, but Macy's is to the east of Cheesecake, and when they come out, I got to tell you that is so rare to happen because when you're inside of Macy's, if you're trying to get to the interior of the mall, unless you're going to Cheesecake Factory, you're probably going to go through Macy's to get into the interior of the mall. So what we've witnessed is the pedestrian walkway, this wide end that we're talking about, although symmetrical with the side of Stack, there's no argument about that. We don't necessarily think that it creates a safety hazard for pedestrians to walk along the south side on this picture, the south side of this 6-foot sidewalk that we've been discussing. And, I think we're all in support of the great community partner that we have in Cheesecake Factory, and there's no question that there's long waits there. It's a very busy restaurant, and what we're really looking to do here with Cheesecake is figure out how we can cut down wait times and drive revenue for the city. So I guess that's all I have to say.
And you are representing Macerich?
Yes, correct.
Okay, and
correct.
Are there any questions of either speaker from the commissioners? I just wanted to mention that I noticed in the area where you say there's not much traffic, but not only are people picked up and dropped off there, and Cheesecake takes food out there and delivers it to people, the Cheesecake puts up a little sign, and that even blocks the walkway. So that's forcing people to go and walk in the wider path, or that's what I observed from all the times that I was out there watching. So you're already impeding and pushing people to the wider walkway because of blocking. There's no way you could get past those signs, let's say with a wheelchair or something like that. So that's something you need to take in consideration too. So, Commissioner Newman, did you have a question from Mr. Spector or for Mr. Oka?
I think this may be more...
the architect or...
Well, I have one and one, actually.
Okay.
I think this is a Macerich question, but it's actually for both of you. The both of you question is whether Macerich has several unused facilities on the Oaks Mall property or in that vicinity, including 2 unused properties that are restaurants, and one other, the Armstrong's lot, that has been in disuse for more than a decade. Was there any consideration at all about using those facilities for expansion rather than the current Cheesecake Factory location?
I don't know anything.
Did you want to speak to that? I don't think so.
Hello, I'm Greg Breland. I'm in Irvine, California, Vice President of Cheesecake Factory Development Department. To answer your question, there's been no considerations of those spaces at this time.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, Mr. Oken, now that you've sat down, I appreciate very much Cheesecake Factory's willingness to compromise. I think it's in all of our interest to find an mutually agreeable solution here. We're delighted that you're so popular and that you're growing, and that's a good thing. You characterized the smaller walkway. Your words were that it's smaller and less convenient. And so I'd like to ask the same question Commissioner Alexander asked of staff, which is there a compromise, given that we're not looking at other properties here, we're looking at where Cheesecake Factory is now? What kind of compromise is possible that would leave the wider, more convenient, symmetrical walkway in place and still allow Cheesecake Factory to expand in its current location?
Well, we haven't addressed those with Macerich yet, so we will have to kind of work up possible solutions with that. But, possibly reducing the planner width or something to create more room is one. I'm just thinking off the top of my head.
Understood.
Yeah. I don't think, and I tried to present that in that diagram where the blue path is only 7 feet longer. Is it really, we're all trying to exercise more. Is it really a couple, 2-3 steps more? Is that really less convenient than a wider path that didn't cut through there? Obviously, cutting around on that side of the planter makes it much more difficult for Cheesecake Factory to create an outdoor patio. So, again, we would have to address this with Macerich because that's outside our lease area. So
okay, but you're not ruling it out outright. You're saying
I'm not ruling it out.
Right. You're saying it is plausible that there's some other way to expand.
Well, I'm an architect, so of course I can think of a number of solutions. It's not my final decision. We'll have to address that. Naturally, we would have to address it with staff.
I'm an engineer, and the correct answer for every question is it depends.
Yes.
So I understand where you're coming from.
Exactly.
But you're saying within the constraints that you're bound by, there may be some other way to work out an expansion of the restaurant, but one that might not necessarily impinge on the walkway in the way that the current application does.
Well, it might be hard to not impinge on that existing curved path at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's, and I think that question came up when staff asked that, and I think our initial reaction was, no, we can't do it because obviously that takes away the entire patio. So it didn't make sense to even develop this project because if we just enclose a patio, we don't really gain anything. So that's kind of why we're here. But thinking of, there's other solutions that we didn't look at which are outside that boundary that possibly we can address. We just haven't done that yet, or we're not prepared for that yet. So.
Okay. Well, I'm not asking you to design off the top of your head tonight, but I'm glad to hear that at least you're open to looking at some other configurations that might not impinge on or remove the pedestrian access that's in place now.
Like I said, I don't think we can not remove it at all or impinge on it. That's because in its current configuration, I don't know if I have that, or it was up on the board earlier, there isn't much room to expand. There's just that small little planter area that Claudia mentioned that, that's left over. So there's not enough there to really make sense of an outdoor patio. So we would have to.
Bottom line is, you're saying you really need that 16 square, the wider walkway.
Or we need to reconfigure a little bit of the planter or something. We need to do something to gain enough area to make it worthwhile. And I'm just saying there's a lot of area there, so we could probably come up with a solution.
All right.
Can we come up with a 11 or 16-foot walkway through there? Possibly not. But I don't, like I said before, I don't think it's a primary path. I don't think you need that wide a path to address the pedestrian traffic that are actually coming through there. So, that's my personal opinion. So, and that's what I would try to address.
Okay, but again, just so we're clear, your bottom line is you really need there might be some reconfiguration of other elements, but the current 16-foot wide, 11 to 6, it's not 16 feet all the way. It's 11 to 16.
Correct.
But that current walkway, your position is that you really do need that space to expand.
Yes.
All right. Okay, thanks very much.
Commissioner Nichols?
Yes, thank you. I have a couple questions here. First of all, I want to acknowledge my daughter's contribution to a large part of your success at that store with her friends, and they go there on a regular basis, probably part of what's created this dilemma. Secondly, we've heard a lot about the access to this area with pedestrian traffic. I've been shopping there on and off with my family. Usually don't go there by myself too much. And I actually jog around the mall also various times of the year. And that is a very high traffic area with pedestrians and vehicles both. And there's a lot of cross traffic. When you're talking about people coming from Macy's, my personal observation is it's the people that have had to park all the way over in front of Macy's and then walk along the sidewalk to get to Cheesecake Factory, or at least the mall entrance, because it's such a key entrance to the mall, prime location. Families are out there just sitting around the fountain. And of course, this creates congestion, and you're trying to navigate, especially on a Sunday afternoon, getting in and out. So it's a gathering place as much as it is a pedestrian place. And so when you consider all these issues of, and I think staff has done a good job assessing those, where it's high traffic, you have a stopover for drop-in, pick up food. You've got the Christmas peak traffic. You've got people that are dining. You've got people that are just enjoying the sunshine and the water out there. It creates a lot of pedestrian traffic. And so that's where my concern is that you have to accommodate that. And so that's a long entry into my question as to, if this was brought up by staff and you've testified to us that you would be willing to compromise, why would you not have offered a compromise so that you could get staff's report to bring something to us that we could all agree on and move forward with?
Yeah, and that's a good question. We were, presented at kind of the last minute that we could be on this agenda, and we thought, well, let's take this opportunity. Now, maybe in hindsight, we could work this out with staff, but if the commission feels that, we can't use any of that, we can't impinge on any of that walkway, it makes the solution a lot harder to arrive at a solution. And it's kind of beyond what I can do here in front of the commission, so we would have to take it back to not only Cheesecake Factory, but Mace Ridge. And I'm not really prepared to kind of make any, present any solutions at this point. So, but yeah, to answer your question, why we didn't, shelve it until we could work it out with staff, I don't have an answer for that right now.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Alexander?
Thank you. Mr. Oka, just looking at the plans and trying to envision a way to get a walkway on the south side of the planter, I'm going to ask you a hypothetical question. You're the architect. I'm not. However, if you push your entire northern edge of your outdoor area, which now abuts the planter, if you pushed it back 6 feet, the way I see the plans, you're going to lose 3 4-up tables internally. The tables on the perimeter are going to stay because the perimeter is essentially the same, but you'll lose 3 4-up tables. So if my reading of the plans is close, would it be possible for you to think about that as an alternative, so that if there was some collective agreement on the commission before the hearing's over, that you'd have some comfort level in that?
To help me understand a little better, are you saying to basically, where from the planter wall, or the curved planter wall, create a 6-foot pathway from that existing planter wall before our patio starts? Is that?
Yes. If you look at I'm remembering the demo line, which is right along the perimeter of the planter wall, of the south perimeter, going over to the east corner. And what I'm asking is, if that entire line, which is now part of the development, was pushed back symmetrically from end to end on the planter wall, so that you had a smaller outdoor eating area, those 3 4-up tables that I see in the middle, it looks to me, just doing rough calcs on the plan, that those 3 tables in the middle would be eliminated. You'd still have those along the perimeter, and you'd still have the one in the back corner. And I don't need an instant answer, but you've agreed to consider alternatives, and I'm trying to get to the point where some alternative might make sense. And if you wanted to think about it, and because you're going to get 5 minutes at the end after everything else, if you wanted to think about it a little bit and come back and deal with that, that'll be fine. But
So
I appreciate your candor on up to this point, and I'd like to look at it and say that it's possible to have an approval, but the issues that I brought up from a safety standpoint, I know you don't agree with, but to me that looks like an alternative, and that's why I'm asking, would you be willing to consider it before the end of the evening?
And Mr. Heher has a comment to make about that.
Yeah, just to lay a little bit of a ground rule here. I certainly appreciate all the commissioners' comments and suggestions, and I know that we haven't closed the hearing yet. I just want to remind you that right now before us we have the staff report with the recommendation to deny the application, and we have the applicant's position that they want to go with the project as is. That's what's before us tonight, and obviously with the comments that have been going back and forth, and I am no way trying to dissuade that at all, and I encourage that, obviously, if that's your path that you want to take. But tonight is going to be, just because of, it would be very difficult to try to redraft this tonight if you're talking about compromise, which I understand. I think it would be very difficult to do that with clarity for everybody, to redesign it. And I know we have great minds here who can think about it and understand it. I'm not worried about that part. It's about making sure that everybody understands what is happening. So my comment, just briefly, is just to remind you that tonight we have the applicant's position, which is to have it as they have proposed, with no compromise, and staff's position to deny that project as is. Again, we've heard the discussions about the compromise issues, and I'm not going to read your minds or attempt to do that. I'm just saying that if you want to go that direction, we'd have to take some other action later on if you're in that mindset, and I would give the same comment to the applicant as well.
And Mr. Town would like to add.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I was in the meeting with the applicants a few weeks ago, and it was in part my suggestion that we bring this to this body for your consideration, and staff made it clear that we had concerns about the proposed design, and so instead of going through, that process of potentially denying it and appealing it, because I felt that it raised a potential policy issue, I thought it would be fastest and most direct to bring it to this body for your input. And you may, in fact, disagree with staff and approve it. I mean, that is one of basically three options before you tonight: to approve the project as proposed by the applicant, to deny the project as recommended by staff, or the third option, which we have done in the past, as the commissioners know, with agreement by the applicant, is to continue the hearing to a date, in this situation, to a date uncertain, to give the applicant, if they want to go that route, a chance to try to come up with a compromise. The applicant is entitled to a decision tonight if that's what you would like, up or down. But the third option of a continuance is still on the table. And I just wanted to mention it now so that you'd have a chance to consider that as a third option. So it really depends on the discussion amongst the commissioners, because the vote would be approve, deny, or the third option would be to continue to a date uncertain. The alternative is to a date certain. The benefit of that is that it avoids the necessity of having to renotice this hearing, but unless we had a pretty clear idea about how long it would take us to sort through the options, I'm thinking probably a date uncertain if the commission and the applicant wanted to go that route. I'm not suggesting it, but it is on the table.
Thank you. We'll continue with Commissioner Alexander.
Well, considering the fact that we've been given a variety of department conditions on the assumption that we wanted to move forward with an approval, and considering the fact that the applicant has initially indicated a willingness to compromise, Mr. Harry, I don't understand.
Sure. The approval would be the approval as the applicant has proposed. So no changes, no modifications. It is the approval. And when I say no modifications, no substantial modifications. It might be, we've done some minor modifications that really haven't impacted to great extent. But again, the reason why I didn't say anything earlier is because I'm not going to read your minds or attempt to do so. And as Mr. Towns suggested, if you are going in a certain direction, there are three options. The point of these conditions were that if you were to say staff is wrong, we like this project as being proposed by Cheesecake Factory, then we wanted to make sure that we had those conditions available for you. What's been talked about a little bit, and again, I'm just using this as my sense of what I'm hearing from all of you in your questions and also in responses from the architect, is that there might be, maybe some idea of a compromise. My concern for all of you and for Cheesecake Factory as well, and the public as well, is to ensure that if there's going to be a compromise, it's, to me, going to take some drawings or some type of a design review that needs to be vetted, and we have a process for that, and we can take the time to do that, so we can present it to you as a whole change, if that's where we're going to go. So you see those with the conditions, with changes, with diagrams, with plans, with calculations, et cetera, so you can have a proper plan in front of you to say yes or no to. And again, that would also indicate that, I want to make that clear to everybody, is that we are not saying by continuing this, if you were to do that, an applicant were to agree to that you're going to say, okay, if you compromise and we're good. It's going to be bringing it back to review what's the compromise is about, and you're the body that says yes or no to that. Again, my concern is when we start talking about this kind of design and just there's a little bit of ambiguity and vagueness to me, that I wanted to hit the mic just to say I'm concerned that you won't have a clear-cut understanding of what the project is tonight. If there is a compromise, that would give you, I think, clarity that I think you should have for such a vote. So again, as Mr. Towns said, the options are deny the project as staff recommended, to accept the project as is with the conditions that we've attached to the back of the staff report, or the three, and again, only with applicant's approval, because it's his right, it's right to be here tonight, would be to continue this for a date uncertain, so that they can go through a process of looking at maybe a different design that would be considered a compromise, and bring that back to you at some other point in time.
Thank you. Commissioner Alexander, or finished? Commissioner Pletcher?
Thank you very much. I'm certainly conflicted by this project. I like the idea of it, especially in times like these where you have these brick and mortar stores that are struggling and it's struggling to get patrons at the mall. It's good to hear the story of a restaurant that needs to expand because we need to cut down wait times. So that being said, I think you're almost there. But my question really, actually, I'd like to ask of Mr. Spector, just with regard to where the mall stands on the issue. There's a lot of talk tonight, of course, of the grand entrance that the mall has with regard to the raised pedestrian walkway. You have the existing fountain, the planters on the side. Where does the mall stand? I mean, it seems like the mall's okay with essentially losing that idea of the grand entrance because we need to expand and change our, change stores, change designs, kind of update everything to keep people coming back. I just want to confirm that, is that my understanding of where the mall would stand on that?
Yes, yes. I would say we're in full support of Cheesecake's plan as is to expand.
Okay. I think just a comment too, I mean, I'm not going to certainly offer my 2 cents into what alternative designs and whatever you can do, but I know just practically from a restaurant background that I have, you can alleviate traffic there with your sign for your drive-by pickup by just installing, certain parking spaces which are designated for pickup, and then you just walk it out to their car. I mean, there's practical steps that I think certainly the applicant and Cheesecake Factory and the mall can both take to come back at another time, possibly, and help get this through. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you very much, and you will have the right of 5 minutes rebuttal time. I also have a card for Teresa Kelly, but I think she was part of your team. So, unless... I don't know what she does, so I don't know if there'd be questions of her. Director of Design for Cheesecake. Would anyone have any questions? Oh. Anybody have any questions of Ms. Kelly? It's on this sheet. She is Director of Design with the Cheesecake Factory. No questions? And I have a card from the public, Mr. Nick Kidway. If you'd like to come forward, state your name and city residence, and you have 5 minutes. Good evening.
Nick Kidway, resident of Newbury Park, probably one of the original customers of this great restaurant. I don't know if they opened when the mall opened, but my kids grew up with it. So I'm a big fan of the Cheesecake Factory, but I'm kind of perplexed with the request, and I fully support the staff position and the direction that the commission is taking. As a patron, I know that in the 90s, maybe, early 2000s, the wait times used to be 2 hours plus. But we've had, so many restaurants open up, and then there is a thing of what is hip. So like the restaurant almost in front, Lazy Dog. A lot of Thousand Oaks people go there. But I am torn, and like Commissioner Pletcher said about being conflicted, in that Red Lobster went out. And Red Lobster, if you read, they have about 700 locations in the country, and this was one of the only ones, I think, that went out. And, of course, my other favorite, TGIF, has been gone, and Marie Callender's and Do Powers, of course. So they need to stay up with the times, but if I might say so, the proposition is kind of cheesy from Cheesecake Factory because we have a grand entrance, and Macerich did a wonderful job when they did the remodeling with what's on the building facade. The fountain, I think, needs to be updated a little bit. It's pretty old, but it's still a lot of fun. And I am glad that the Commission is leaning towards supporting the staff recommendation, and I don't see a problem that the Commission can come up with alternatives and give direction to the applicant so that they can come back. Certainly, you are not in a position to vote on alternatives that are presented, but it would be great to have a discussion point, and because I am really happy that the attorney pointed out that I am really unhappy with the commissioners trying to micromanage projects, trying to manage projects from the dais, because just like the reason a lot of citizens don't come here is because it is really not a very conducive and communicative process where you can help make change. You just accept what it is. So maybe if the Commission will take a step back and try to not second-guess staff, because a lot of give and take, a lot of time is spent by professionals, and after reading the staff reports and making the visits, it should be cut and dry kind of, and it should not really extend these meetings to 8:30 to discuss some of these projects which are fairly simple and drawn out, and get the best results. So I thank the Cheesecake Factory for the wonderful food they provide. I don't know the name of the waiter, but there's a waiter that's been there forever who has a photographic memory, and he tells you everything. That's one of the reasons for the success. And but I don't think the wait times are there. I mean, the inside patio was not there. I remember that. The outside patio has been there, and the Slackers restaurant with the covered overhead, it did not used to be there, but that place has gone through a lot of changes, so it's difficult to make a go of it. So maybe they do need the extra seating, but this kind of outdoor seating at a grand entrance does not really jive with the mall concept. It might be great on Thousand Oaks Boulevard or on a small side street to have tables out there, but for a mall, we need to take a step back and see what maybe some of the other more successful malls like the Spectrum and others are doing. Thank you for letting me speak. Good luck.
Thank you. Any questions of the speaker? I just want to say that's perfect seating for the fireworks, Mr. Kidway. Now is the time to go back to staff. Ms. Pedrosa, do you have any comments to make regarding anything that's been said?
Thank you, Chair Reynolds. I just have a couple of comments, and I know that the director was trying to give some ideas and just at the top of his head, but I think one of the concerns would be when the architect mentioned about reducing the planner area, and as opposed to that, Commissioner Alexander pointed out maybe reducing the outdoor dining area versus reducing the planner area. So that's maybe some items, if the commission were to give some direction to the applicant, that would be an item that probably would be a concern of staff, of any additional reduction of the planner area. Also, it was mentioned about being less convenient to go on that pathway versus the main raised pathway that goes into, like, by the fountains. Again, besides the convenience or not convenience, what staff's concern is the feel of the area, the use of the area. Like Mr. Nichols had also mentioned about pedestrians using it, and people sitting on the planters, people sitting on the fountain, and it's more of a people space. And also, like we mentioned, if some of the design characteristics that include more of the symmetry of the entry, how they frame the entry. And right now, the patio, outdoor dining areas are equal to what's on the other side. And also to consider that, that wants that this addition also could trigger other additions that may be looking for the same type of expansion as well. So staff is looking at more like, how this project fits into the mall, into what was done when the model was done, and also what it provides. And it's not so much of a convenience or not convenience. And we did have a few people that observed there's actually quite a considerable amount of people that are using that pathway. So those are basically more of the overall. It's definitely the opinion from the architect as far as whether that's not the convenient path or that's not used as much, or etc. But I just wanted to point out to the commission and just kind of want to remind the commission that one of the items that staff was concerned was the overall feel of the whole area as it's being used versus a convenience, or let's just expand the patio out to this limit, or consequently try to reduce the planner area to accommodate another pathway. So I don't know if Mr. Town has anything to add to that.
No, Mr. Town. Are there any questions to the Commission of Staff? Commissioner Newman.
Just a quick clarification from Mr. Heher. Thank you for laying out the options before us tonight. And I appreciate the caution against designing from the dais. I'd like to understand the practical ramifications of two of the three options you laid out, either concurring with staff and voting for denial versus voting for continuance. If that's the direction the commission chooses to go in, either of those two options, I'll ask this of staff, of the applicant as well, but what's the difference in practical terms? Does one have less friction is one easier for the staff than the other?
If I could respond to that question. The basic difference is that if the commission opted to go with staff's recommendation of denial, the application before you tonight would be denied. And then the applicant would have basically two options. Three, I suppose. They could just not go forward with the project. They could appeal the Planning Commission's decision to City Council. Or they could go back and redesign the project and reapply. So the big difference between a continuance and a denial is that with a continuance, the application is left open. There are no additional charges in terms of application fees. We would continue to evaluate it. Plans would be developed by the applicant. They would be reviewed by staff. And then once we felt that we had a viable alternative, we'd bring it back to you. And then you would take a vote at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Commissioner Alexander?
I just want to make sure I understand what Mr. Town has said, because from a practical standpoint, it's my understanding of what you just said that a continuance is less cost, less time for the applicant. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions to the commission before I call the applicant back? Okay. I'd like to call, Mr. Oka back. And you have 5 minutes. Again, state your name and city of residence, please.
Good evening. My name is Craig Oka, and I reside in Huntington Beach, California. I guess all this talk about compromise, I think there's kind of a misunderstanding about what level of compromise, obviously, and we'll have to work that out. But we can't really make that outdoor patio work if we push the limits of it too far back in, because it becomes too narrow and it's triangular shape. We just don't get any effective seating out there to make it worthwhile. So in my mind, what I was thinking when I said compromise was basically reducing the planner. Now I know maybe that's not what staff thinks is appropriate, or maybe some of the commissioners, but that's kind of what I was thinking. That's pretty much all I have to say. And I do feel that it's not a primary path. I understand maybe there is some grand architectural feeling to the space that was probably part of the Macerich expansion that, I wasn't aware of, but, to try to maintain that walkway in its entirety is going to be very difficult. So that's kind of where we stand.
So you're saying you do not want a continuance?
We do want to continue it if that's an option.
Okay.
From what I understand. But what I'm saying is that I think Commissioner Alexander was asking if we could push it back 6 feet from that existing planter, and what I didn't have a chance to respond to was I didn't think that wasn't my idea of compromise. I didn't think that was going to be possible.
Aren't you also planning a planter next to the rose planter already?
The rose?
On this plan, looks like there's a new planter, or is that part of the planter that's already there?
It is part of the existing planter, the one to the east?
The one with all the things that look like plants, that's part of the existing planter?
Yeah, they're encroaching into the existing planter to the east by about 500 square feet.
Okay.
Up against the curved wall, we do have a small strip of planter that's part of the patio. Yes,
right,
you're correct.
That you put lights in or?
It's a place where, we have the little cutouts for the patio heaters and stuff. It's just behind the curved settee.
Right, right, okay.
Correct. That's just a little landscape buffer.
Right. Okay.
So you're not pushing the patio right up to the edge of the planter.
Okay. Are there any other questions of this? Commissioner Nichols?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Oka, just to get this perfectly clear, if we're in a position where we're not able to support the plan as proposed, rather than deny it, would you be open to a continuance where it would allow the staff and your team to get together to try and work out a compromise short of the commission trying to design that for you? Is that something you're willing to move forward with?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Continuance. Okay, Commissioner Alexander?
Okay, that answered the big question for me.
Right.
The only other question I would ask is, upon closing the public hearing and prior to a vote for continuance or whatever anybody decides, we could then have discussion, air any additional concerns, so that if it's continued, the applicant has heard all the concerns. Is that essentially
right, but
correct?
if you change anything, he has the right to respond to that. So we'd have to reopen the public hearing. So now is the time to get all your questions out that could be possibly asked, because the applicant does have a right to come back and respond to anything.
Okay.
So do you have a question, or should we go with the flow and just see what happens with deliberation? Okay.
I'm trying to do this correctly without stumbling, and that's obviously difficult for me.
Okay.
The concerns I have, Mr. Oka, are both the lack of additional access egress from the backside of the planter, assuming the planter stays the same as it is now, and then somehow addressing the issue that currently exists where where your customers and vehicles are taken care of via people walking out. I sat there for a half an hour and watched and saw that twice, so I know it exists, and so that's an additional concern, some of which will be eliminated with the second aisle, but those two things are my concern at this point, the second access egress and also that issue of servicing your drive-up customers.
Okay. Commissioner Fletcher?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for the record, my better understanding, when you said compromise, you were talking more of working with that existing planter, finding a way to possibly expand that alternative, I'll call it the alternative walkway, and seeing about possibly shaving off a little bit of the planter. Is that your idea? Just right now, I don't expect you to fully,
That was correct. That's what I was originally thinking.
Okay.
Was coming up with some solution to widen the path if staff and commissioners felt the path wasn't wide enough. I wasn't necessarily thinking of Commissioner Alexander's solution, but it's possible, we can strike a balance of where we can maintain the seating, but take a little bit out of the planter and still create a path on the south side. We haven't studied that.
Because I think the traffic issue with the pickup of the food, as I mentioned before, I think that's very practically can be addressed. I wonder, I guess it comes back to Mr. Spector. If we do head down that road, my only question to him would be, you don't even have to approach, it's more of a hypothetical. Just addressing that other planter on the other end to possibly make it match, make it symmetrical, just to keep that idea if we do head down that road. I think that'd be nice, because obviously if you have one planter that looks one way and one that looks the other, you lose that grand entrance, you lose that grand feel. So anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Any other questions to the applicant? Commissioner Nichols.
Maybe more of a comment than a question, but since we're trying to make sure that you are fully informed for a decision, along the line as Commissioner Pletcher was talking about, was if we go through this process of, and I would like to see something happen there, just not quite sure yet what that's going to be, but as staff has talked about the symmetry of the entrance, and Mr. Pletcher mentioned that also, that doesn't have to be perfectly mirror symmetrical, but as a designer, how things can be coordinated. Maybe don't look exactly alike, but maybe to the untrained eye like mine it looks alike, but to yours you've created it that way. And I think that's part of the concern also is we've got a design there which is symmetrical, and if we start encroaching to now make that asymmetrical, it's going to change that whole appearance. And so if there could be a coordinated approach where if you do the same on the left and the same on the right, or whatever you do, that it looks like it belongs and it doesn't look like it's a bootlegged edition on the back of a house, or that type of a thing. No, nothing against your quality by me, but that's part of the overall feel. Besides some of the expressions that I had with it being more of a gathering place, or equally as much as a gathering place, including for people waiting to go into Cheesecake Factory, as it is for other areas, to bring that into that whole equation as you evaluate that, assess that, as to what is this area truly used for, rather than just linear walking paths, and to keep that in mind. So again, short of our continued deliberation, just want to make sure you're aware of that.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much. And at this time, I will close. Any other questions of staff? Okay, I will close the public hearing, and now is the time for deliberation, motion. Gentlemen, Commissioner Newman.
Before we get into motions, I have a comment for the commission, not for staff or applicant necessarily. I am currently somewhere between agreeing with staff to vote for denial or to get a continuance because of concerns that Commissioner Nichols has raised about congestion, especially later in the day and in the evening. That's a pretty heavily traveled area by pedestrians. On the compromise point, I'd like to see that happen. I'd like to find a way to make this work. But here is my concern with the compromise, is I think the two parties here, staff and the applicant, are currently in different places as to where they draw the line. Staff's line is behind the planter. It's in what is currently Cheesecake Factory territory, if you will. And applicant's line is in front of that planter, where if there is any encroachment, it would be on the planter side of things, and that brings up the whole issue of symmetry that others have raised. So I'm all for compromise, but if we're starting with different definitions of what that means and what that looks like and where the line is, I'm a little concerned about how realistic it is to reach a compromise given the different sets of definitions or different sets of assumptions at work here. So that's the issue I'm struggling with. I'm not currently inclined, unless others make good arguments to convince me, I'm not currently inclined to approve this, but while I'd like to see a compromise, I'd like to hear more about how a compromise could be worked out given these differing definitions.
Thank you. Anybody like to join in? Commissioner Alexander?
To echo the concerns that have already been raised about symmetry, I think that's important for the entrance. I believe that if the modification to one planter was done, it ought to be done on both sides, without question. And to address the issue of compromise, I think the compromise needs to be dealt with in total between what the applicant's trying to do financially based on the expansion and what the aesthetics are with symmetry and what it invites with the next step when the Cheesecake Factory comes to terms with whatever they decide to do, and then Stackers looks at it and says, oh, okay, what's good for them is good for me, and off we go again. And so I think that staff, I'm comfortable that staff and the applicant can come to terms with it. I think the continuance is the right move. Not sure where everybody, I heard Mr. Newman, and so I think the continuance is the correct direction to go, and I would make that motion, but I'm not quite sure how that is done.
Mr. Town, did you want to give some direction on that, or?
Maybe if I could. When we met with the applicant's team, we very briefly discussed alternatives, and it was pretty clear at that point that the applicant wanted to go forward with this design. Given the discussion tonight, I would recommend a continuance because we give staff and the applicant a chance to really sit down again, look at alternatives. To be candid, I'm not sure if we can find a compromise that works for all parties and reflects the comments that I've heard tonight from the commission. But I think it's worth a shot. I think it's worth an attempt. And I think it, and like I said before, would save time and cost for the applicant to enable us to at least explore that. And if it works out, great. If it doesn't work out, we're not really in a different position than we are right now.
Okay, great. Did you want to make a motion, or Commissioner Pletcher wants to make a comment?
Well, I just very briefly wanted to echo our discussion of a continuance. I think it's unfair in a way for us not to approach anything but a continuance and allow them, from what I gather from listening to the applicant and both the mall, they have a very good working relationship and both sides want to see this happen. Both sides understand the economics of it. And I'd be very interested before we make anything that solidifies a yes or a no to see what else they can come up with, because I think even though staff had a discussion with them as far as alternatives go, we brought up some good points, and I think it's something to be said that they can take it back, and if they bring back plans and we just don't feel it's 100%, then we definitely do a yes or a no. But so I just want to echo the idea of a continuance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Nichols.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the partnership really between the Oaks Mall and Cheesecake Factory is part of what's made the mall a success as well. You have a number of key tenants. Cheesecake Factory, a longtime tenant. Obviously an attribute to the relationship there. Key player for our community as well. So I want to see something happen there. What I've seen tonight, I don't quite like. I don't quite think I can support that. Would support the denial rather than the project itself. But I do want to see something happen there. And I think you've heard a lot of comments from the commission, a lot of concerns. And, like I said, I don't want to be in the design mode up here, but I do want to provide some feedback. So with that, I'm going to move for a continuance to a date uncertain. And a couple of suggestions to go along with that as to whether it be for staff or the design team to consider, or perhaps even Macerich, because I think some of that goes with it as well. I made a comment about it being kind of like a gathering area. You can't just deal with half of a gathering area. You have to look at the whole package. People come from both sides to get to this Cheesecake Factory, not just the one side. And not just down the sidewalk, although a lot of people do. So let's look at the whole package, make sure it's coordinated. I don't necessarily think it has to be symmetrical, but it has to look like it belongs as to what's going on there. I do believe we do need an extended width sidewalk walkway there. The 6 feet that's proposed is inadequate. We need something more than that. My personal opinion, and staff may not like this at all, I don't know that the planters have to stay, as long as it looks like it belongs. So, if one goes, I think they both go. If the one stays, they both stay. It just has to work. So however that goes, and, Mark, you can shame me later or whatever, but I'm just saying,
No.
This is the types of things that I'm just thinking of is what I might find of interest that would fit both parties and that type of thing. Even some of the comments that Mr. Pletcher made about finding alternatives for the pickup sandwich board that blocks the sidewalk. And it does. It blocks. It's like you can hardly get around it. So there are things like that to kind of broaden your perspective as you're looking at what's going to work to make this happen. Pushing the dining space maybe more in the back corner. And I don't know what all the pros and cons are, what the uses are, what the ramifications are, but those types of things to look at. Because I do want to see something there, but I don't want it to be people dining just a napkin falling away from the curb. It needs to be a little bit further back than that. So those are the types of things that I had in mind. I think I've mentioned everything, so I'll leave it at that. Just food for thought as we go through the process here.
That's excellent. Commissioner Newman.
I appreciate very much the comments of my fellow commissioners in expressing a sense of wanting to move toward compromise. That makes me feel a lot more comfortable about it. I have no specific design guidelines to offer. We're not in that business. I would ask in a general way to recognize that while you're running a business and you're doing things to make your business run as well as it can, I think one of the things that would help that and make this a more attractive and ultimately profitable location for you would be to remember that this entrance was designed to be pedestrian friendly. And whatever changes are made, and I'm not advocating for this planter here, this sidewalk there, or this width or whatever, or any of that, is to retain the pedestrian-friendly feel of the space. And whatever staff and the applicant can work out and still keep that very open, very pedestrian-friendly feel, I think that is something that I'd be very favorably inclined to look on. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners want to speak to the motion? And the maker of the motion, do you have any final words? Oh, and I'm going to say that I'm going to support it. I'm very much for the continuance. And I think coming together, it'd be very hard for me to vote against the Oak Shopping Center, since they get most of my salary from sitting on this commission. So, okay, gentlemen, would you please then vote? And the motion is for a continuance to a date uncertain.
Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you. And I don't know. There still is an appeal. There wouldn't be an appeal period for this, but we are going to take a quick break. I'm sorry. So we'll be back in 10 minutes. I'd like to call the meeting back to order. And before we open case 8C, I wanted to just give a big thank you to Commissioner Nichols. We didn't get a chance to thank him for the past year for his leadership as chair of the Planning Commission. And I think we all enjoyed your leadership and the way you conducted the meetings, and hopefully I can do the same. So we thank you very much. Commissioner Nichols, would you like to?
Well, thank you. It's a great opportunity. I feel honored to be able to lead this group of distinguished commissioners, and even with our newest commissioner, I know he'll be doing a great job. But thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to now sitting under your leadership.
Oh,
thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'll ask the clerk if she would open the public hearing 8C, please.
Hearing advertised as required by law is hereby open to consider agenda item 8C regarding case MND 2014-70482, TTM 2014-70479, Z 2014-70114, RPD 2014-70478, and LTP 2014-70480. Applicant, Hillcrest Signature Homes, LLC. Request to adopt mitigated negative declaration 2014-70482. Allow a zone change from rural exclusive, RE, to residential plan development, RPD-4.5 units. Subdivision of a 2.47 acre lot into 10 lots of record. Construction of 9 single-family dwellings and removal of 1 toyon, and encroachment within the protected zone of another toyon. Location 2080 East Hillcrest Drive.
Thank you. And our staff report will be given by Mr. Will Chua. Good evening.
Good evening, Chair Reynolds, members of the Commission. The subject property consists of almost 2.5 acres of land, as mentioned, is located on 2080 East Hillcrest Drive, just east of Glenwood Place. The applicant was granted approval by the City Council in 2014 for concurrent processing of 4 entitlements which were previously mentioned. Because the concurrent processing includes a zone change, which is a legislative action by the council, the municipal code requires that the city council review all the associated applications. In this case, the role of the planning commission is to make recommendations to the city council on the entitlements as well as the legislative action. This aerial photo shows the subject property in red highlight. The vacant property directly across the street is a development of 7 single-family homes, which is currently under construction by the applicant. Glenwood Place is to the west, and McKinsey Court is to the east of the subject site. The residences on Glenwood Place were built in the 60s, and the McKinsey Court properties were built in the late 80s. The McKinsey Court project is a mirror image of the proposed project in terms of lot configuration. To the south of the project is a mobile home park, right here. The toyon tree to be removed is in the middle portion of the west side property. There is a huge pine tree here, and the toyon tree is just right underneath that. The toyon and the oak trees to be preserved are on the southwest corner of the property, which is right here. The proposed zone change from RE to residential plan development is consistent with the subject property's low-density residential designation on the land use element of the general plan. The current RE zoning would allow up to 10 single-family homes, and the proposed RPD zoning would allow up to 11 residential lots. So the potential number of the lots under both current zonings are pretty much comparable. The principal reason for the zone change is that the RPD zone allows smaller lot sizes, which allows for more flexibility in site design. A zone change from RE to RPD 4.5U was approved for the parcel of the same size on McKinsey Court, which I pointed out earlier. This zoning map shows the current zoning for the site, which is in hashed marked the west side on Glenwood Place. The properties on that side are zoned R1. The McKinsey Court is zoned 4.5U. The project across the street under construction is zoned HPD, and the adjacent property to the south is zoned as TPD. 9 residential lots and 1 private streets are being proposed under this tract subdivision. The residential lots are generally rectangular in shape and will all front on the proposed private street. The average lot size is about 1/5 of an acre. The lot dimensions, including lot widths, comply with the city standards and are compatible with the surrounding single-family residential lots. Lot 10 is the private street that is 36 feet wide and has a cul-de-sac diameter of 80 feet. A homeowners association will be formed to maintain the project's common areas. Since this is a vesting map, the city ordinance at the time of the tract approval will apply. This site plan shows the layout of the proposed tract. As previously mentioned, this is a mirror image of the tract on McKinsey Court. The Hillcrest would be on this side, so the project is taking access from Hillcrest with a 36-foot wide private road and an 80-foot wide turnaround. The proposed 9 homes will result in a density of 3.64 units per net acre. This density is consistent with the proposed zoning of RPD 4.5U and the low density designation in the general plan. The subject property is lower than Hillcrest Drive. Adjacent properties to the south and west are slightly lower than the subject property. The properties on the east side are slightly higher. Grading will be completed in a single phase. Earthwork will require an import of 2,000 cubic yards of fill in addition to the existing stockpile which is already on the property. The site's finished grade will maintain its relationship to the adjacent properties with a grade difference of ranging from 1/2 foot to 8 feet. Retaining walls of varying heights with a 5-foot high wrought iron fence on top are proposed along the west, south, and east side of the property. Behind lots 2, 3, and 4, there will be a second upper retaining wall where the lower wall would exceed 6 feet in height. This upper retaining wall will also vary in height up to 3 feet. The reason for this is to break up the walls not to exceed 6 feet in height. There will be a 6-foot high screen wall along the north side of the property, which is adjacent to Hillcrest Drive for privacy and noise mitigation. The project will consist of 5 2-story and 4 single-story homes. Lot 1, which is the lot adjacent to Hillcrest Drive, is a single-story. The houses will have a contemporary style, having stucco, wood trim, and stone elements, which complies with the city's precise plan of design guidelines. Building height for the RPD zone is limited to 25 feet and with certain exemption. Unit G would need to be modified to be lowered down to 25 feet from its current height of 25 foot 8 inches. A condition requiring this modification has been included in the suggested conditions. This is Plan E as proposed by the applicant, single story. This is the model that's going on Lot 1, which is adjacent to Hillcrest Drive. This is Plan F, which is 2-story with a balcony. And this is Plan G, which features the same materials as the first 2 models with a 3-car garage. And again, this is the aerial photo for the site. And McKinsey, just to remind you, is on this side right here. So if you look at the, as we proposed, this is a mirror image of the proposed site. All existing utility lines and poles will have to be placed underground unless the applicant is granted a waiver of this requirement with the approval of an underground utility waiver. There are two poles, I believe, that's adjacent to this property. Hillcrest Drive is part of the city's scenic highway system as depicted in the scenic highway elements of the general plan. The city policy on projects located in proximity to the system is to ensure that the new development are compatible with the scenic highway standards. Policies which pertain to this project include preservation of mature trees, architectural review of the project, walls to ensure compatibility with existing urban and natural surroundings, and undergrounding of utility lines. Mitigation measures are incorporated in the design of the project to comply with the city's scenic highway standards that include a 6-foot-high wall along the front of the project, the first unit being a single story, and the trees and shrubs that will be planted along the front wall of the project. There are 3 protected trees on the property, including 1 oak and 2 toyon trees. One oak tree and one toyon tree and an oak tree are located in the southwest corner of the property, which I showed earlier. No encroachment will occur within the protected zone of the oak tree, which measures at 4 inches trunk diameter at 4.5 feet above grade. Encroachment within the protected zone of the toyon is necessary for fencing and wall installation. Another toyon is located towards the middle of the property, as mentioned earlier, and this toyon will be removed and will be replaced with a 3 15-gallon toyon that will be planted along the front of the property. A M&D has been prepared by staff where it's found that there will be no significant impacts after imposition of the mitigation measures, and a condition has been included in the suggested conditions requiring that the applicant comply with the mitigation measures. And at this point, I'll turn this over to Carrie Lowry from Public Works.
Hi. Good evening.
Good evening, Chair Reynolds and members of the Commission. I'm Kathy Lowry. I work in traffic. I just wanted to bring your attention to, you've probably seen there's a traffic study included in the MND. City staff didn't require the applicant to prepare the MND. They did it on their own. In fact, where our guidelines are, if a project generates more than 100 p.m. trips, we recommend them doing a traffic study. In this case, there's 9 p.m. trips, so it was really very forthcoming that they did it on their own. Although the traffic study does make the assumption that the street leading out to Hillcrest is a restricted driveway that only allows right turn access out, when in fact it's a full access driveway. So given that the assumptions in the traffic studies, even if they assumed a full access driveway, none of the conclusions or recommendations in the traffic study were changed. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention. That's all.
And with that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council adopt MND 2014-70482 and recommend approval for zone change 2014-70114, VTTM 2014-70479, RPD 2014-70478, and LTP 2014-70480. And at this point, staff is ready to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. And we also received a page, supplemental packet with the 5 new public works conditions that I think each commissioner has. Okay. Questions of staff. Commissioner Newman.
Just one question regarding condition. Well, thank you for your presentation, Mr. Chua and Ms. Lowry.
You're welcome.
Regarding condition 9 about minimum frontage, this is a condition, this is on page 62 of our packets, that requires each lot to have a minimum 40-foot street frontage. Perhaps I'm misreading this, but I think some of the lots, Lot 5, maybe Lot 6, definitely Lot 7 and 8, have considerably less than 40 feet of frontage. So is this a condition that we need to strike, or does this apply to the whole project?
We have Brad from Public Works, maybe to clarify that.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Oh, I apologize for that. It's too late. Okay.
We'll take care of this one for you.
Yeah. This condition is a standard condition that we normally impose on subdivision. But in this case, yes, if the planning commission wishes to strike it out, we can strike it out.
Okay, so I mean, it is the case that there are some lots that are less than 40 feet, and that is okay. It's just we've got this boilerplate requirement here.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. No other questions.
Okay. Any other questions of staff? Commissioner Alexander?
Thank you. In your presentation, you referenced the McKenzie Court project, and I believe your words were that this was a mirror image of that project. Considering the difference in elevations between McKenzie Court and the surrounding properties on either side of it, and this project with the elevations on either side of it, can you give me the rationale for allowance of two-story homes backing up to what it seems to me to be homes that are going to be quite a bit lower?
There is a certain distance between this property and the wall and the proposed wrought iron fencing, which will be where the direct line of sight would not be that obvious because of that distance, and also there are requirements that the applicant provide trees for planting behind the properties that are 2-story in height. This will reduce the effect of making it look like you have a 3-story home, I mean height-wise, compared to that of a single-story home. And that would only occur, I believe, on lots 2, 3, and 4, which is about 8 foot higher than the properties on the west side.
And G is being lower.
If I read the elevations correctly, the pad elevations are on this project will be approximately 5 feet above the properties below to the west. Am I incorrect?
Yeah, we have a property. We have behind lots 2, 3, and 4, we have double walls, and the purpose of the double wall is to break up those 6-foot high retaining. So the variation between that is about half a foot to about 3 feet. So as we mentioned in the staff report, the difference between the grade elevation on the west side is between half a foot to 8 foot. So that doesn't mean that the whole west side is 8 foot lower than this property. It kind of varies. The height differences kind of vary. So the worst part would be between lots 2, 3, and 4.
Which is the 2-story.
Yes. Well, we have a few. Yeah, we have 2 stories on lot 2, I believe.
Yeah.
And let me.
Okay, I guess where I'm going with this, simply put, is it seems to me with that kind of elevation change and with a 2-story home, the privacy of those homes to the west side is going to be infringed upon with 2nd story. And that's really my only concern, that the house itself I mean, if a single story, then I don't see it as an issue with the trees that you've already required.
Right, and that's the reason why we imposed that condition.
Commissioner Fletcher?
I just have, maybe it's just a standard terms question. Number 31, just with regard to hours of operation, what I noticed is that when we were looking at a commercial property like the Cheesecake Factory, we put the same terms in as far as the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. as we did with the something like a residential development.
Mm-hmm.
My really only concern is that Saturday time. I mean, maybe just like an 8 a.m. start or something a little bit more reasonable, just because you have a lot of construction going on that's right against a lot of other houses in the neighborhood, and you know, certainly by comparison, a Cheesecake Factory, you can start it up at 7 a.m. and really no one's going to notice. But something like this, when you're doing 9 homes, this equipment's going to be there for a while. I don't know if again, Mark, maybe want to address that, if we could change that to maybe an 8 a.m. or just considerations that why we set it at 7 a.m.
The municipal code sets this standard, but if the planning commission would find it proper to impose a more restrictive hours based on the surrounding properties, then the commission has the option to impose a later hour on Saturdays.
Mr. Town, did you want to?
Yes, Mr. Chua's characterization is correct. The standard hours in the code are 7 to 7. However, this body may, due to site-specific concerns, restrict those construction hours.
And I know in the past we've restricted radios to properties. Commissioner Alexander?
Does that mean that if we wanted to ask that construction be Monday through Friday and no Saturday construction, is that something that could happen?
You could theoretically do that, but obviously it takes longer, and often neighbors want the work to be done as quickly as possible.
The flip side.
Go ahead.
The flip side of that is, it's an infill project next to or surrounded by existing homes, and weekends being what they are for people that are 5-day work people, that might, to me, that would seem to be relevant as a question, but as long as it's available, that's fine.
Commissioner Nichols?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Chua, thank you for a report. I had a question regarding the rezoning. I always try to take a close look at zoning issues, and this one seems to be fairly reasonable. But nonetheless, the report indicates that with the existing zoning of RE, that it's possible to build 10 homes. You have 2.47 acres, 10,000 square feet for 10 homes is 100,000 square feet, leaves you 7,000 plus for a street. Is it possible to design this tract under RE and build 10 homes physically?
Well, that's purely theoretical. The number that was given was based on the number of square footage total, the acreage of the property, and the actual and the minimum lot size required for RE. So theoretically, you are allowed to do it. Like in most of our most of our zoning, we can say here's the density, but the number of actual houses that you can do there depends on the orientation of the property, what you have in there. You have the terrain. In this case, this is rectangular, going deep into the back of the property. If the longer side goes on along Hillcrest Drive, then that's really easy. Maybe you could do exactly 11. But at this point, if you actually going to design it, there's really no way to tell whether you could build 10 houses on it based on the RE zone. But this, the one for you right now, in front of you right now, is a proposal for 9 single-family homes, which is much less because of the provision of the private street.
Right. And that was my next question: is why a private street versus a public street?
This is a private street that's been proposed by the applicant, and maybe one of our personnel from Public Works can answer the question on the advantage and disadvantages of a private street. Brad or Kathy?
It's really a question to the applicant of why they're proposing a private street.
I can do that. Next one there. It appears to be that there's been some recent grading there, but I don't see anything in the report about grading that's already been completed. So what grading was approved and has been completed to date?
Back in late 2015, the project across the street, which is already also being developed by the property owner, by the applicant, they request, since they have excess export, instead of bringing their export out, traveling out of the city and dumping it somewhere, they found that it's more advantageous if they could just provide it here, because they're going to need a fill here anyways. They applied for a grading permit, and they were granted for it. The advantage of that is less truck trips in and out of the city.
So does that mean that the Toyon in the middle of the project that was proposed to be removed has already been removed?
No, the Toyon's still there.
And how were they able to put the dirt there if it's in the middle of the project?
The dirt does not go throughout the property. It just stops somewhere, I think, between the third existing house on the property.
Okay, all right. That was confusing me. Thank you. And just to clarify, what is the elevation difference between the rearmost homes and the mobile homes in the back?
There is a retaining wall behind that's about 5 foot in height. So I'm assuming, and maybe the applicant can give us a more accurate number on that, but I'm assuming it's at least 5 feet.
Okay.
On behind lot 9.
All right, I'll save that one up too. Let's see. And on condition number 36, Community Development Department conditions on page 17 of the agenda item, 68 of the packet, it refers to the exporting, importing earth materials and shall be subject to review and approval of the Planning Commission unless sub-sites have been previously approved. Can you explain what a sub-site is? Condition number 36 under grading.
Uh-huh.
The second to last line says sub-sites.
Oh. Export. I can't explain that. Let's see. I think this is a standard condition that's been imposed on every project. To be honest with you, I don't know what sub-site exactly means. Maybe, and sub-sites may be an area where there's a temporary staging of dirt.
I just was curious. I don't remember ever seeing that term before, but maybe I just read it over and never noticed before.
I think Mr. Town might be able to clarify.
I think the intent is for temporary storage, although I've never seen that actually used in the city. Export is taken out of the city typically. Mm-hmm. And this is sort of an unusual case where fill was brought in literally from across the street. But I would interpret it to be a temporary stockpiling elsewhere in the city. In terms of the term subsites.
So if it, obviously it's not going to be the case here, but does this mean then that if, for example, if this project were to be approved as proposed, Planning Commission approves it, and there were some subsites that were not anticipated, and then they said, hey, we'd have some subsites, Does it then have to come back to the Planning Commission for approval?
I think the concept here is that if this is saying that any export has to be approved by the Planning Commission unless locations were already approved through some other mechanism, which is not the case here. But if those subsites, quote unquote, had been previously approved, then that decision would not have to come back to this body.
Okay, all right. That's it for my questions now, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions, staff? Okay, I will go to the applicant, and I don't have a card for you, but if you'd like to come forward, and it's Mohammed Essa, and if you fill out a card after you speak, please, for the record, and also state your name and city of residence, and you have 15 minutes. Good evening.
Good evening, Chair Reynolds and the Planning Commission. My name is Mohammed Issa. I'm a resident of Westlake Village, and I'm the applicant here and also the architect of the project. I know that we have the drawings, and a lot of it has been reviewed by you guys already, and this is a project that is a much low intensity project from what was proposed there long time ago, many mansions and with 80 units and all the older people homes and all that. In fact, we had proposed that across the street too, to do an assisted living. That was all chucked, considering all the neighborhood opposition. So we went back to the 7 homes, and then these 9 homes would make it a 16 very good quality homes in that area. And we are very passionate builders and architects. I'm also a general contractor, so we're going to be building and developing this to give it a very good quality. Now, I know that you guys would have questions. Instead of just taking up all of your time, I would rather answer the questions that you have than anything else. And I'll address the first one that I noted here, was the private versus public street. We'd rather it be a public street. It's not by choice that we are asking it to be private, but I think any time we ask the Public Works, they recommend that it be a private street, so that the homeowners association is responsible for maintaining it. And we have much higher HOA dues when you have a public street that is now private. It has to be maintained in the long run. So for us, the preference would always be it be a public street, but whether it's allowed or permitted, or whether Public Works will allow us to do it, it's a different story. But either way, we need to move forward with the project if you guys can be kind enough to see the merits of it.
Questions? Anyone have any questions for the applicant? And Commissioner Nichols.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Issa. So your preference would be a public street, that the staff was directing private just as a cost-saving measure?
Yes.
Okay. And is that a requirement for approval? Because
if that is possible, we would request that it be a public street, yes. But not if the project is going to be held up or delayed or denied.
Okay. All right, well, I'm going to take
the other question that Commissioner Alexander asked about the differences in grades and all that. I think the worst case scenario is on those 2, 3, 4 lots, and the neighbor who's most affected by it in support of the project is Bill. He lives right across those lots on the west side. Now, we know that when there is a great difference, there's always an issue, but we have come up with a solution of very closely planted hedges on top of the retaining wall there, so that the visual privacy can be maintained to offset any great difference there in that area. And we have already talked about it with Will Chua and everybody else, that we would want to do that actually. It's good for not just the homes, but also to the neighbors, so we don't have issues down the road.
But Public Works in the later years could take it over, though. And I guess that's done before. That's happened before, but it needs to be built to the city standards, though, is the one thing. We don't want a substandard street that eventually would become a considered public.
Right, I just was curious as to the, rationale.
Right,
if it's
why,
just cost savings,
that was one of my notes, too.
Yeah.
But I know they can never gate it. There's a condition that they can never gate.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
The street across the 7 homes that we are doing is a private street. That's how we are doing it over there.
Okay.
okay, any other questions? Commissioner Nichols?
That was it. Thank you.
You're good? Commissioner Alexander?
Yes, sir. There was some conversation about start times on Saturday for construction. Do you have any thoughts on the comments? And
we are typically very considerate of the neighbors, and there will be, any construction is a nuisance in the neighborhood, but, for that short period when neighbors can endure a little bit, then they get much more benefit out of a nice development in their neighborhood, which we anticipate that all surrounding property areas' values is going to go up when something of a good quality comes up. So I think a little bit of sacrifice from the neighbor's side is going to benefit everybody. And the sooner we are done, the better it is that we get done. And when the laws, allow 7 a.m. onwards, then we would just ask that it be left at that. But at the same time, when there are high noise, high impact, anything that is happening, we can kind of delay that and just work with the neighbors like we always do. So I think we'd rather leave it at whatever the standards are, and then the rest of it, we will work with them.
Okay, and they would be having a meeting with the neighbors before the grading, too. That's part of the conditions. Commissioner Pletcher?
Just one comment and I guess a follow-up to your statement. First, I appreciate that although we're taking out a tree, you've dedicated yourself to planting 3 more of the 15-gallon trees to replace it. I like the idea that you're mitigating that tree removal. I think that's a very important part, and I'd certainly like to see more of it amongst development and businesses in Thousand Oaks. It's important to keep our name truly Thousand Oaks. Just as a follow-up, as far as reaching out to the neighbors then with regard to the construction times, if you have a major projects coming, I don't know if you'd gone through the thought process, if you'd have a 1-week notice period or something to allow the neighbors to kind of prepare, or, I don't know if you're even open to that idea, or...
We would have, before the construction, we would have a site meeting where we would invite the neighbors and then, hear out their concerns. This would be way before we even begin the construction. And we have worked, hand in hand even to come to this point of the project where we have specifically spoken to each neighbor down the road, let them know what we are doing. And so there's little, we don't want animosities over there. We don't want problems there. We want to go in there, build a good thing and leave. So I don't see that as an issue or as a problem. And if there is ever issues that come up, and we openly say that, and Bill, like I told you, he is just right to the west of the project, and he knows all the neighbors up and down the street too, and he has spoken to, I would assume all of them. But it's basically hand in hand. You just work with them. And one of the other neighbors adjacent to Bill allowed an entire easement of the stormwater drain where we had no way of draining out the water in that area through his side yard onto the other side of the street. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to, push the water upstream. So this is how the neighbor, this is how closely we work with the neighbors, where they even volunteered us, allowed us to go through. So, this says a lot about how closely we work with the neighbors.
Well, thank you very much. I certainly applaud that you've chosen to work with the neighbors. We've had a lot of other projects that have come before the City Council and the Commission that they haven't gone that route. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. And you'll have a right of appeal, rebuttal time of 5 minutes at the end. Sorry.
Thank you.
I have a speaker's card from Mr. William Oaches. If you come forward and state your name and city residence, please.
Hello, Planning Commission. I'm Bill Oakes of Thousand Oaks, and thank you for your presentation, staff. It was very enlightening this evening. I'm here to support the Hillcrest Signature Home Project. My family and I live on Glenwood Place. It's a tract of 25 homes, and 6 of the homes will be directly touched to proposed development location, including my family's home. As a community on Glenwood Place, we've worked with the developer to define the proposed end result. It's sometimes you want more homes, sometimes the residents want less homes, but the proposed 9 single-family homes does seem reasonable. The proposed development is almost an exact duplicate of the Mackenzie Court on Hillcrest Drive, which is located extremely close to the proposed Hillcrest Signature Home project. Since that project was approved for 9 homes, it's almost the same size. It only seems fair that Hillcrest Signature Homes also be approved for 9 homes. The Glenwood community does ask one item of the developer and the city to take every precaution during grading of the land. The Glenwood tract of homes was built on the expansive soils that's in the area, and our particular homes don't have any rebarb in the foundation or the slab. Yeah, some of the homes have some structural issues, and the community is kind of concerned about that. As a community, we spoke with the previous landowner and their development and the lack of rebarb we have, and they were going to take some precautions during their grading with some seismic equipment during that grading process. And again, we support the project. We like it. It's going to be good for the community. We want to see families move into the community and have access to the schools. And the request we have about the grading, we think is reasonable at this time. Any questions?
Go ahead, Commissioner Fletcher.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just coming back to a question that we've all kind of touched on as far as the construction, the hours of construction, specifically with Saturday. I know we were talking, it's that 7 to 7 now. Just what are your feelings as a homeowner in that particular area, just with regard to the construction hours?
I'm only going to speak for myself on that, but I would like to get it done. My wife might think otherwise. Maybe want to sleep in. The dogs might want to sleep in too, but I would prefer just to get done as soon as possible and move on.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have another speaker card, Nick Kidway, but he kind of indicated to me as he walked down the stairs that he was leaving for the evening. So with that, we can go back to staff, and I would hope that staff would make some comments about the seismic. I know when there was grading behind me, tiles came off of our swimming pool, so years ago, many years ago. So I don't know if you're aware of any of that or the request for Mr. Oakes. Anyway, Mr. Chua, or?
Good evening again. I was going to address the public-private street question, and if it's the request of the applicant and the pleasure of the Planning Commission, we could add to the private street improvement condition that was given to you in the packet. And at the end of that condition, we can add, if requested by the applicant, the street may be accepted as a public street per approval of the city engineer. So we're
What number was that, Ms. Laurie? Oh, it's just under the, okay, the supplement. Okay. Okay, would you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Of course. So follow where it says City Standard Plate 3-2, period. Then the new sentence. If requested by the applicant, the street may be accepted as a public street per approval of the city engineer.
Thank you. Is there anything else that staff wanted to add?
There's nothing to add at this point.
Okay. Any questions from Commission? And what about well, I'm going to ask about the testing. When the grading commitment, when the grading equipment is out there, Do they ever do any readings or anything of the sound? I know it was sound that the city brought in, some equipment to check the decibels when grading was taking place. And that might be something that would impact their slabs in their homes if they don't have rebar in them. As I said, I know grading caused tiles to pop off in my pool when it was going on.
Well, perhaps I can comment on that. I think what you're actually talking about is vibration rather than sound. And I think all the standard precautions will be taken. I don't anticipate this being a problem, but I'm not sure exactly if Public Works has anything in position that would deal with that.
During the grading operations, there will be soils geologists on site.
Okay.
And those soils geologists will be testing, and if there's excess vibration, it'll have to be brought to the attention of the applicant and their soils engineer, and then they will have to mitigate that during grading.
Okay. Just so we can assure the homeowner that something will be taken, there will be somebody out there checking or watching over the project, I guess the best way to put it. So, okay, thank you. Is there anything else, commissioners, before I call the applicant back up? I would like to call Mr. Essa back up, and because we want to make sure that you accept this addition to condition number 2 that has been presented by Public Works. And if you state your name and city residence again, please.
Mohammed Isa, resident of Westlake. Now, as for the condition of the private versus public and all that, as long as that choice is left to the applicant, because I would need to do a little bit more research on it with the civil engineers and make sure that, and from what you have read, what Kathy has said, I think we're just fine with that.
Okay, good.
Line item. And as far as soil and stability and everything is concerned, we have very highly skilled soils consultants on the job all the time, and nothing gets done without them. So all precautions will be taken. And as an architect, I know that the building codes have been revised over a period of time since the Northridge earthquake to a very great extent. And that everything that gets done is like, a lot better than it used to a long time ago when those other homes were built. And there are no homes that, at least from what I have done, in any building without reinforcement. So I don't know how things got done without that. So, but reinforcement is part of the foundations and the systems, and all work will be done like that.
Okay. And you do accept the 5 new Public Works?
Yes, we had a discussion on it today at length, and I reviewed the conditions, the supplemental conditions, and yes, they are acceptable to us.
Thank you. And Commissioner Nichols has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, Mr. Issa, in reference to the existing soil that has been captured from across the street and placed on the site, does that now all need to be reworked into the rough grading, or is that okay as it sits?
No, it's not okay. It's just being piled there temporarily. And we would have to, what is called an over-excavation, means we have to go actually way down below, and then compact it in layers so we achieve the right density.
Okay, so it was just placed on site and leveled out?
Yeah, because, that was the best place. We had a lot of export from across the street. We had almost 50,000 cubic yards of export that we did from that particular hill, from that site. And before this one, and all of that 50,000 went to the water tank up on the top on Lone Oak. And that was almost like 4,000 trucks that we cut out of there and put it up there where they needed the dirt. But anyway, there was almost 10,000 yards that we have already exported down, which was, pretty much a ditch. Now we have been able to make that work. And it was all, pre-planned and calculated that we export the least. And then also have something right across the street, and one of the reasons why we bought the property in the first place too.
Yeah, it sounds like you're very fortunate with that option.
Yes.
So how many yards remain to be imported?
It'll be about plus or minus 2,000 cubic yards.
And how many truck trips would that be?
Says in here.
Let's see, there's about 7 yards per, 7 yards per truck. So about 300, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, 300 trucks.
I know had seen some numbers in here, and I didn't know if that was all inclusive with what is actually on the site there.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's on the site is about already done. That's about 10,000 yards.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That was it for me.
And thank you for doing that. That really saved a lot of truck trips and
yes,
a lot of pounding on our streets.
Tank.
That's really a great thing because they'll put truck trips in the report, but as I say, the trucks have to come in and then they have to leave. So it really doubles that number if you're really talking about the truck trips. I'm sorry, that's one thing.
And we moved 60,000 cubic yards and the streets were clean, so.
Yep. That's great. Okay, is there anything else of the applicant or anything else you wanted to add before we
Not
close the
really. I
public
think,
hearing?
if the commission can be gracious enough to accept the project and go to the next, I think the council hearing will be in about 4 weeks or so. And we want to move this project very fast and make it happen.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, commissioners, before I close? Then I'll close the public hearing. And motion, deliberation. It must be that seat. I've decided, because I used to make all the motions. It's got to be the seat.
Maybe we need to switch
Nichols.
chairs. We'll keep the same place, just switch chairs. Madam Chair, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion if I could. I'd like to make a motion to go ahead and approve and recommend to the City Council adoption of MND 2014-70482 and approval of Z 2014-70114, LTP 2014-70480, and RPD 2014-70478, based on the findings and conditions. And I also might add, including condition number 2 on the supplemental report that we received today, the additional sentence regarding the acceptance of the private street at the request of the application. That's right. We were also going to eliminate condition number 9 regarding minimum frontage, as that doesn't apply. And again, as I mentioned earlier, I always look cautiously at zone changes, but I think this is appropriate. It does offer the necessary flexibility to make it a workable project, and I think it basically accomplishes the same objectives that we would normally see otherwise. And again, it is very similar to the project just down the street of Mackenzie Court, so it seems like it would fit the neighborhood. And again, I do appreciate Mr. Oak for coming down and at least speaking for yourself, not necessarily on behalf of all the residents, but I know it has been a little contentious in some of those areas, so appreciate the support and look forward to working together with the developer on that. So that was my comments.
Thank you. Any other comments to the motion?
Just I apologize, but maybe I just didn't hear it. Did you actually also in your motion include adopting the MND?
Yeah, that's why I asked that.
You did. Okay.
I thought he had. Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? No, I just want to say that I really like the project. I think it's great. I don't know if Mr. Thomas would like all the building on his property, but he's was kind of a historic figure around town. I think he even ran for U.S. Senate one time years ago. So, but this was the old Thomas property. Yeah, more than one time, right. So, okay, with that, I'll call for a vote, please.
Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you, and this is a recommendation to the City Council. And we'll continue on with the agenda. Get back to the Community Development Department reports and referrals. Mr. Town.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few quick items. We will not be meeting on May 9th, so our next meeting will be on May 23rd. We have actually one case listed here, but we have others that are likely to go on that agenda. And those are that is listed on page 103 of your packet. Then on 104 of your packet, we have a summary of city council items of relevance to the commission's work. And tomorrow night will be a busy night in terms of council review of cases that have been considered by the commission. The Seventh-day Adventist, Academy Road LLC's sign appeal will be heard by the council. The Highgate project will be heard by the council, also on appeal. The Amgen specific plan amendment, the removal of Planning Unit U, as recommended by this body, will also be heard tomorrow night. And then the council also recently initiated several legislative actions I wanted to bring to your attention. One is to update the city's sign ordinance, so that will be coming to you for recommendation. Also, we've been working quite extensively on reformatting the zoning sections of the code in terms of putting permitted uses in a table format rather than the narrative format that you have today. So it's more analogous if you've ever seen the county's permitted table matrix. We're doing that for our code as well as a number of ancillary tweaks and modifications. And then also you may have noted that the City Council also recently initiated that amendment to the general plan circulation element to basically relocate Rolling Oaks Drive, which was one of your recommendations, is now come of your hearing on the Oakmont Assisted Living Project. So that has now been officially initiated by the council. We'll be coming back to you and then going back to council for final approval. And then finally, assisted living is still a hot issue, and the council authorized a general plan amendment and zone change for the vacant property at the southwest corner of Duesenberg Drive and Los Feliz Drive, which I think maybe, Darrell, you considered a project there. A storage facility, which was approved by the commission, never went forward. Now an assisted living has been proposed.
Lengthy discussion on the oak tree there.
So you have 4 legislative items coming your way. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any, Commissioner Nichols?
Yes, Madam Chair, just a follow-up. Mr. Town, in particular regarding that last project where we'll be seeing an assisted living at some point come before us, will we be able to have our assisted living parking report prior to hearing this project?
We're working on that right now. The earliest date actually may be May 23rd. If not, then it would happen in June, but staff is tentatively targeting that date. That was one of the other hearings that we have in the pipeline, potentially for your next meeting.
Thank you very much.
Are there any AB 1234 reports? And to the new commissioner, those are if the city has paid for us to attend something of State of the City or some of the planning meetings or different things around town. That's why we have to ask that. It's always on our agenda. And now, commission comments. Anyone have any comments or anything? Okay, with that, I will adjourn the meeting to 6:30 p.m. on May 23rd, 2016. Good evening.